We'll wait for people to show up. Oh, hello, valued customer. Well, what is on the menu tonight is plenty of consumer-friendly regulation. By that, we mean our regulation, not the FCC's regulation. Hi. Oh. And who could that be? Another person on YouTube. Wonderful. It's the appropriate attire. But that's neither here nor there. We're pleased to tell you about our wonderful ISP packages rolling out very soon. We're just waiting for the chat to fill up. Don't want people to miss the excitement. So please, wait patiently in the waiting room and I will play for you some royalty-free waiting room music. It has to be royalty-free. You know, copyrighted content. Anything that's deemed as copyrighted probably won't be on the internet very soon, or at least it will be more throttled than other content. Who knows? Let's see if this is waiting material. Businesses like smooth jazz. For wonderful people. Not sold out. Bought out. I'm not kidding. Business waiting rooms really like smooth jazz. Don't worry, it's not copyrighted. You can dance. My name is Rich Douchebaget. Thank you. I don't have my name tag on me. I seem to have misplaced it. Where the hell is my pen? Pencil pusher. Ah, so we have 5 lovely people. Why don't you introduce yourselves? I think this is enough people to commence our fisting of the day. So, as you all may have heard, the FCC, in a decided vote of 3-2, has decided to improve the internet. I want to ask you something. How much do people know about anti-trade laws? And on top of that, how much do people know about the FTC? Can anybody tell me about the Federal Trade Commission, or how it has any jurisdiction or control of communication networks or information? Antitrust laws only prevent scummy business practices. Now, here's the thing. Even though the FTC has authority of antitrust laws, what exactly confirms that they will have any teeth or authority to do anything about internet service providers when they are no longer classified by the Telecommunications Act? What, Title I? What does a Title I carrier do? Let's check this out. Federal program that provides funding to local school districts. Ugh. We want the Telecommunications Act, Title I. See, that was another thing. If you looked up Title II, it didn't actually take you to the Telecommunications Act Title II. It took you to some Healthcare Act Title II. So that probably didn't help with the misinformation. Title II of the Communications Act. What exactly did it do is the question. Title I, General Provisions. Purpose of Act, Creation of Federal Communications Commission. So this is Title I. The purpose of regulating interstate and foreign commerce and communication by wire and radio so as to make available so far as possible to all people of the United States without discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, or sex, rapid, efficient, nationwide, and worldwide wire. See, that's the issue. Nobody knows that much about net neutrality, and yet the proponents of it think they know about as much as the opponents of it, and the opponents of it think they know about as much as the proponents of it. All we know at base was that there was one thing that happened post 2015, several things in fact, that put ISPs at the cream of the crop. Something that made people so desperate, the FCC had to regulate ISPs. The question is, why? What exactly happened? Well, from what we understand by court cases spanning back all the way to 2005, I believe, they were engaging in a lot of biased business practices such as throttling, blocking, and favoritism. They were pushing their own entertainment network crap and, well, on the sidelines, screwing the things that you enjoyed. I do remember an internet that buffered quite a lot under our previous regulators. Does anybody remember the little buffer circle on YouTube? And how apparent it was before 2015? I do. Of course, I'm sure other people don't. And that's okay. There's been a lot of mudslinging and misinformation tossed around about net neutrality, and I think this is on purpose because it's not an issue that the public really bothered to generally educate itself about. And the only real way to figure out what net neutrality of 2015 did is to read the document ourselves. And that is hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of pages. Some pages often repeating themselves in the guise of the same regulation. No layman specification. There's the issue, isn't it? No layman specification of these documents. That means people had to sit there for hours and read hundreds upon hundreds of pages of one regulation to understand it, which to most can be very off-putting, but sometimes pages, hundreds and hundreds of pages on one regulation is so damn necessary you wouldn't even believe it. It seems it was expected that the FCC would vote to repeal net neutrality rules. You might ask yourself, what is net neutrality? Well, according to this, net neutrality is the principle that the internet service providers must treat all data on the internet the same and not discriminate or charge differently by user, content, website, platform, application, type of attached equipment, or method of communication. For instance, under these principles, internet service providers are unable to intentionally block, slow down, or charge money for specific websites and online content. The term was coined by Columbia University media law professor Tim Wu in 2003 as an extension of the long-standing concept of a common carrier, which was used to describe the role of telephone systems. A widely cited example of a violation of net neutrality principles was the internet service provider Comcast's secret slowing and throttling of uploads from peer-to-peer file sharing applications by using forged packets. Comcast did not stop blocking these protocols like BitTorrent until the Federal Communications Commission ordered them to stop. In another minor example, the Madison River Communications Company was fined $15,000 by the US FCC in 2004 for restricting their customers' access to Vonage which was rivaling their own services, AT&T was also caught limiting access to FaceTime. So only those users who paid for AT&T's new shared data plans could access the application. In July 2017, Verizon Wireless was accused of throttling after users noticed that videos played on Netflix and YouTube were slower than usual, though Verizon commented that it was conducting network testing and that net neutrality rules permit reasonable network management practices. Research suggests that a combination of policy instruments will help realize the range of valued political and economic objectives central to the network neutrality debate. Combined with strong public opinion, this has led some governments to regulate broadband internet services as a public utility, similar to the way electricity, gas, and the water supply are regulated. Along with limiting providers and regulating the options those providers can offer, the United States supported this view in 2015. But on December 14, 2017, the FCC voted to repeal net neutrality. So the Wikipedia was updated. And by a lot of it, the throttling, the favoritism, and the blocking, all of it was very apparent. So we need to ask if the Restoring Internet Freedom Act is actually going to do what it says it is going to do. Now, I want to show you something that would probably be quite frightening to any average Joe. You see that? That is the internet of Portugal. A place that does not have net neutrality. Now, a bunch of asshats, as I like to call them, would like to tell you to your face that all of this is just fear-mongering and scare tactics. And yet, there is no recourse for Portugal. Why then, oh why, would it be different for Americans when we forfeit sovereignty after sovereignty already? Why then would it be different for any other country if America follows that example? That's the question I like to ask. And for some reason other people don't ask it. Notice how in their package it doesn't include Mixer or other entertainment bundles for video. In fact, I don't even see Mixer listed on here. So does that mean sites that couldn't pay billions of dollars aren't available in Portugal's internet? Quite possibly. But we'll just have to find out, won't we? Oh, that's so fun. You're a guinea pig for an experiment, and these people don't seem to care whether you consent to that experiment or not. But that's neither here nor there, right? It's just fear-mongering tactics. We're just trying to scare you. There's no actual viable criticism to any of this. It's just fear-mongering. Scare tactics by the left. By the way, there were people on the left for this sort of repeal as well. But I do believe there were extraordinarily more people on the right and the left that were against the idea of the Restoring Internet Freedom Act. Namely because there are a lot of people that seem to believe that the FTC does not contain the tools necessary to uphold those regulations. And if the Title II stamp is removed, how would they enforce these regulations? They're no longer classified under the Telecommunications Act. In fact, they're a private business. They can do whatever the hell they want with their product. Where the fuck did people think that the ISP market was competitive. They thought that market was competitive? How many different ISPs do you see other than Xfinity, Spectrum, AT&T, Verizon, and maybe a few upstarts here and there? By the way, Xfinity is Comcast, so no, I didn't leave Comcast out. Sprint? I believe that's AT&T, but I could be wrong. Would you look at this? How at all will I ever protest if Verizon tries to do something? Look. What phone provider my phone is registered under? And tell me something. Even if you cancel your internet, unless you also plan to cancel your phone plan, if bad things do happen, what recourse do you have? And that's the thing that's important about all of this. Throttling, blocking, unethical business practices. Oh, hell yeah. All of these things were still happening under the Net Neutrality Act of 2015. But one deceptive, downright conniving, skeevish tactic I have seen by these proponents of this new plan is the outright blatant lie that net neutrality was only in effect post-2015. Bullshit. The groundwork for it was laid all the way back in the 1996 Telecommunications Act. Something I couldn't have known about unless I did research, because guess what? 1996 was the year I was born. And it's the thing. There's a difference between experiencing something and reading about it. I don't know what the internet was like in 1996. I was a baby being born out of my mother's womb. I'm not gonna lie there. I have no idea what the internet was like in 1996. I don't imagine it was like this. But that's just speculation, I suppose. In fact, we enjoyed a free and open market of the internet that was the envy of the world. This became a market that was the envy of the world when YouTubers and streamers became prominent. I'm pretty sure that didn't happen until around, I'm gonna say, 2014? So, bullshit. That's like 1 year before they were classified under Title II. And even then, the net neutrality principles still existed. The only issue is, according to the circuit courts, the FCC did not have the authority to enforce net neutrality unless the ISPs were reclassified under Title II. I have no idea why that is. Maybe it's because Title II has something to do with what authority the FCC actually has over them, and that they can't enforce regulation on private businesses, which is what I think ISPs were classified as, until they were reclassified as public utilities under the Telecommunications Act. Something tells me that's all the 2015 net neutrality did, without all the spunking and fear-mongering and crap like that. But maybe I'm wrong. It was pretty text-focused. Pen and paper and a lot of likely to be appealed, and it may return later on. I'm not sure. Huh? The internet's gotten to the red. Well, that was bizarre. me go ahead and do something about that. There. My connection shorted out for a second. I apologize for that. No, I'm absolutely positive that's not what's up. What is this Restoring Internet Freedom Act? Senator Lee introduces the Restoring Internet Freedom Act. Huh. Mike Lee, U.S. Senator of Utah. So this is an editorial for the U.S. Senator of Utah. Let's take a look at this. Washington Senator Mike Lee introduced the Restoring Internet Freedom Act Monday, a bill that would nullify the Federal Communications Commission's 2015 Open Internet Order and prohibit the FCC from issuing a similar rule in the future. Meaning, if we get fucked, there's no recourse. They have barred the FCC from intervening again. And guess what? When ISPs were throttling, when ISPs were performing all of these out-of-line business practices, the FCC was the only agency that intervened and did anything. Congress? Senate? Your state representative? The FTC? The only person that stepped in and did anything about it was the FCC. So, maybe they had malicious purposes. Maybe. Who's to say? They were the only ones that did anything about this blatant corruption. About these blatant snake oil salesman tactics where people were being charged more for speeds that they were being lied to about. Yeah. ISPs didn't have to tell you the truth about the internet speed they were giving you. You just had to take what they were giving you. And isn't it ironic that they're saying, oh, this has caused network congestion? Yet I seem to recall up until now we enjoyed the internet just fine. That can't be coincidence. The bill is co-sponsored by Senators John Cornyn, Tom Cotton, Ted Cruz, Ron Johnson, Ron Paul, Tom Tillis, what the hell, Ben Sass, and James Inhofe. My God, I probably butchered their names. Few areas of our economy have been as dynamic and innovative as the internet, Senator Lee said. This is largely because the federal government has taken a hands-off approach that has allowed permissionless innovation to deliver unthinkable technological advances in such a short amount of time. But now this engine of growth is threatened by the Federal Communications Commission's 2015 Open Internet Order, which would put federal bureaucrats in charge of engineering the internet's infrastructure. That is why I am introducing the Restoring Internet Freedom Act, which would nullify the Open Internet Order and prohibit the FCC from issuing a similar rule in the future. You know what's ironic? A very specific Title II was put in place. There is no rate regulation. They give you a base speed, everybody has to go by that speed. You pay more, you get faster internet. But what they couldn't do was lie to you, give you slow internet speeds. Then when you paid for higher internet speeds, you're not actually getting what you were paying for. And on top of that, certain sites are being blocked, having extraordinary amounts of time to buffer in lieu of the competition for it they've created. Essentially, rigging the game in favor of their products. A slimy practice indeed, and it's not pro-consumer at all. That is why I am introducing the Restoring Internet Freedom Act, which would nullify Open Internet Order and prohibit the FCC from issuing a similar rule in the future. Well, two coalitions want to sue for different reasons. One wants to sue for potential damages to states and clients, and the other wants to sue for not enough public involvement, which violates the procedural law of 1946, I think. Perhaps. It runs good, it's a little bit slow. Yes, but we're under the current regulations. Will Comcast lie? Will Comcast throttle? We'll find out, especially if our internet starts acting differently than how it normally should. And then suddenly they've rolled out these new and amazing orders. Now, I'm not going to say our internet is going to be like Portugal, because I really think that by the public outrage, these businesses know the American people aren't going to stand for that. They're going to try a subtler approach. But mark my words, they're still going to try and rob you of every penny. They're a business. It's what they do. This is largely because the federal government is taking... 2.5 years ago, I said that net neutrality was Obamacare for the internet. Yes. And everybody hates you, Senator Ted Cruz. At the time, the Obama administration, in its typically deceptive manner, had conflated net neutrality, a worthy idea as originally defined to protect an open internet, with reclassifying the internet as a public utility under Title II of the Communications Act of 1934, a burdensome behemoth of a law that gives all sorts of authority to the government to regulate pricing and terms of service and stifling innovation online. Fun fact: the Title II put in place for net neutrality was a unique modern Title II. And in it, there was no severe or overarching government intervention. Overarching. They still have to enforce the regulations. But on top of that, no rate regulation. So what are they talking about? It's simple. They're trying to conflate the Title II that the FCC created in modern stance with the Title II of 1996. They can and will continually say to you that the Title II that regulated these ISPs is the same one as 1996, and that's where the misinformation comes in. Yeah, you know what else stifles innovation online? Businesses that will literally throttle and manipulate their competition to get what they want. My comments were intended to raise awareness of this unprecedented government power grab which the Obama administration and its friends at the FCC were attempting to quietly accomplish. I am proud to work with my friend Mike Lee on the Restoring Internet Freedom Act, a bill that rolls back former President Obama's power grab protects open internet principles, and recognizes the transformative effect that the internet has had on our lives, generating billions of dollars of new economic activity and millions of jobs largely free of government's heavy hand. We must preserve a free and open internet and give stability to the companies and users operating within the internet ecosystem. Now, something I find very questionable about all of that. These massive corporations lobbied millions of dollars to ensure that this passed. And they are lobbying millions of dollars against the states that want to erect their own ISPs, enforcing net neutrality by state regulation. Now, if they cared so much about the will of the people, why would they tell states, in fact, their order somewhat prohibiting states, from erecting their own city-based, town-based, or settlement-based ISPs, enforcing internet speeds that they could afford? Because they're not for the consumer. And anybody that thinks that in any way that is for the consumer must be joking themselves. It doesn't even take a lot. You don't have to know what net neutrality is about to know that the businesses lobbying for it have screwed people well before Twitter and YouTube existed. But apparently, no. Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, they are clearly the greater evils because for some reason they are pro-net neutrality despite being anti-freedom of speech. So they've conflated this idea that somehow net neutrality protects their ability to censor people's speech online. How? Nobody has given me an explanation as to how. They have just conflated that. And I usually get the meaningless banter of, oh haha, I'm smarter than you, oh haha, look at the libtards, they're so angry. Look at the salt. You honestly thought that was the basis of an intellectual argument? Your fucking brain turned to mush. And it's coming out of your ear. I'm gravely disappointed in the shit show of a job that these wonderful and amazing protectors of the internet had done in explaining how this bullshit is good. Or explaining why opponents of this act should support it. And again and again and again and again and again, the only point I hear, it was an Obama-era regulation. It was put in place by Obama. Because it puts the government in charge of the internet. Well, I don't know. Think about this, friend. In the span of 2 years, the government would have already taken control of the government. We're talking 2015 here. Here it is almost 2018, and if the government had any god-tier jurisdiction over the internet, I feel like they would have abused it years ago. But on top of that, you believe a lie time and time again that these regulations did not exist before 2015. They did. They were revised in 2015, and the only thing that was revised is that the ISPs were registered under Title II. Now, I don't know the logistics of that, but I feel like it was necessary when they had to go through a 7-year battle just to not have to go to court again with Comcast, Verizon, or any of these people, and have the circuit courts for some reason side with the ISPs. I don't know about you, but I think there was corruption in those courts. Still, they did what was necessary to ensure that those regulations were enforced. And paint me blue. But back when people were struggling, those regulations were the only thing proposed to put a stop to the blatant ISP corruption that people experienced. And any person that is saying that wasn't prevalent isn't telling you the truth. We have documents upon documents, pointing back to case after case after case after case. How the ISPs tried to screw over the consumer. Internet service providers, by the way. And how these regulations provided discourse for the FCC to do something about it. And they would enforce the regulation, then immediately be taken to court after for their unlawful practices. They're corrupt. They think they're above the law. They think they're above the American people. Anybody that thinks they serve us or give an iota of a damn is somebody who puts way too much faith in businesses. Because Trump hates anything Obama. Oh, I've heard that time and time again. I don't think the proponents of repealing net neutrality even know what it did. I think they were just blindly supporting that because Obama. I have no evidence that suggests otherwise. Because for some reason I've had people come up to me and say that somehow putting these regulations in the hands of the FTC after gutting the Title II portion of it and asking for light-handed regulation. So you know what that means? Soft rub, soft rub, soft rub. Little slap. Little slap on the wrist. And of course, doing, what was it now? Oh yes, providing transparency. What the hell's the transparency going to matter if the public has no method of recourse? Oh hey homie, I just wanted to let you know that I am coming to absolutely fuck up your shit. Now you know. And I guarantee, we'll bring it up to the FCC. We'll tell them, look at what they're doing. Look at the damage they're causing. They'll tell us to go to the FTC. The FTC will tell us to go to the FCC. And we'll keep going back and forth and not get anything. I think this is how it's going to go down. But maybe it's all just baseless conjecture, right? I am proud to work with my friend Mike Lee on the Restoring Internet Freedom Act, a bill that rolls back former President Obama's power grab, protects open internet principles, and recognizes the transformative effect that the internet has had on our lives, generating billions of dollars of new economic activity and millions of jobs largely free of government's heavy hand. We must preserve a free and open internet and give stability to the companies and users operating within internet ecosystem. If you gut the regulations that gave people that very internet freedom and then hand them off to another agency and say, hey bro, it's going to be all fine, and assume that people are supposed to believe you about that, you're really not getting the memo. This bill is another important step to roll back harmful Obama-era regulations that stifle innovation and delay broadband deployment in Wisconsin and throughout America. Right, so here we go again, saying all regulations passed by the Obama administration are bad. That's why you fucked healthcare and gave people a shittier healthcare plan. By the way, they did that. Did we forget that? So yeah, these people are really the ones qualified to tell us what Obamacare regulations or whatever are. They don't care. It's all just lip service. They're gonna get rid of the Obama regulations, and the people that blindly support that ideal without thinking about the importance of those regulations are gonna cheer and clap and jeer as people are dying around them. They don't have common sense. They're a bunch of fanatics. What can I say? You get those on both sides. This wasn't a left versus right battle. This was us versus the political bullshit camp. Which is why we need to get political. The only way to defeat our opponents is to know their arguments. Something we didn't want to do and just thought, man, this is all going to end well. Apparently not. That stifle innovation and delay broadband deployment in Wisconsin and throughout America. Why is there no broadband deployment in Wisconsin? It's just like, fuck Wisconsin, we don't want their money. They could have done that any time. I don't think the FCC stopped them from deploying in certain state lines. Just saying. Senator Johnson said the FCC has taken encouraging steps to address this overreach and Restoring Internet Freedom Act would help ensure that the internet remains open and free of heavy-handed federal regulations. What heavy-handed federal regulations were going on? I'm hearing a lot of buzzwords, but no proof of a god-tier regulation that just fucked up the internet so bad for us. Alright, because when they're talking about innovation, they're talking about the bullshit ways ISPs can scam us. Putting a stop to the FCC and the Obama administration's unauthorized power grab over the internet is an important step towards ensuring continued technological innovation, Senator Paul said. The internet and web-based commerce have flourished over the past 20 years, spurring growth in the American economy. Getting big government and bureaucrats out of the way of that growth will benefit all Americans. This legislation is a step in the right direction as Congress works to ensure internet regulation does not stifle innovation. It didn't. Internet regulation was a thing for quite a while. I'm telling you right now, soft-handed regulation. ISPs are going to go ahead and step around that. Go for the few transparency clauses and information that they'll probably have to put in their mission statements. But ultimately, nothing is going to require them to give you the internet you pay for. It's almost as though that's what net neutrality did. And by taking the root off of that regulation, what they have done is given a beaten and dead horse to another agency altogether. Because something tells me, I don't think Ajit Pai and the Federal Commission are going to sue Verizon, sue Comcast, sue AT&T, sue whoever. I really don't believe that. The internet and web-based commerce have flourished over the past 20 years, spurring growth in the American economy. Getting big government and bureaucrats out of the way of that growth will benefit all Americans. This legislation is a step in the right direction as Congress works to ensure internet regulation does not stifle innovation. Senator Inhofe said, I appreciate the steps FCC Chairman Pai has already taken to roll back the 2015 order which undercut future investment by curbing innovation and creativity. And I look forward to working with my colleagues to address this issue. I still haven't gotten an answer as to how this curbed innovation and creativity. It is just a buzzword if you don't explain it. Because I am a businessman, apparently. Restoring Internet Freedom Act passed Senate, passed House to President, became law. So it seems like this act has to pass the Senate, House of Representatives, and the President. I take offense to that. Did I do that? Restoring Internet Freedom Act. This bill nullifies the rule adopted by the Federal Communications Commission on February 26, 2015 related to the reclassification of broadband internet access service as a telecommunications service. The FCC is prohibited from reissuing such rule in substantially the same form, or from issuing a new rule that is substantially the same, unless the rule is specifically authorized by a law enacted after enactment of this bill. That's right. You'll have to lobby and campaign to have a law that cancels out this law to have net neutrality back if this blows up in your face. Oh, doesn't that sound fun? Good luck. Referred to the Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation. Prohibit the Federal Communications Act from reclassifying broadband internet access service as a telecommunications service, and from imposing certain regulations on providers of such service. Be it enacted by the State and House of Representatives of the United States of America in Congress assembled. This act may be cited as the Restoring Internet Freedom Act. Yeah. If anybody actually remembers net neutrality, we fought for it well before 2015. If anybody remembers the fight against SOPA, yeah, people, that was before 2015, by the way. So, anybody that actually fucking believes net neutrality did not exist before 2015. Yeah, bullshit. This act may be cited as the Restoring Internet Freedom Act. The rule adopted by the Federal Communications Commission in GN docket number 1424 on February 26, 2015 related to the broadband internet access service shall have no force or effect, and the Commission may not reissue such rule in substantially the same form. Yeah. Oh, they're improving net neutrality. No, this is literally a rollback. This is what that is pointing out. Oh, we're not getting rid of net neutrality. We're getting rid of the 2015 regulations. The internet was open and free until 2015. Yeah, and we constantly fought an uphill battle for net neutrality. Your representatives don't represent you if they're not going to enact your will. You don't vote for them to do whatever the hell they want after they're elected. You vote for them to represent you. The friggin' senators that say, you know, there are large amounts of people that are opposed to this idea. Oh, here, let's watch some videos talking about this too. Give me a second here. What happened to the audio?
I'm unsure at this time how much new information I can contribute to the conversation, if any, but I thought I would take a moment to discuss what has happened, what will happen, and at least do my best to work through this as my own meandering thoughts will allow me to. First off, a lot of people have been talking about net neutrality and how it is an absolute necessity in today's world. First off, we have to understand how this all came about, and it's worth noting that the FCC had tried multiple times in the past to enact net neutrality. Those attempts were blocked by the courts as, at that time, internet service providers were not classified as common carriers, which falls under Title II provisioning. And there is a difference as, at that time, internet service providers were classified as what are called contract carriers, which meant that they had the right to limit services or refuse services as they deemed fit. As a common carrier under Title II, ISPs were required to provide services without discrimination.
Right there. The point I just made. Without the Title II provisions, they don't have to give you shit. They can refuse you as you see fit. As they see fit. And by the corrupt track record of these people, when the Title II regulations go, there's no recourse. Your laws, your governments, your courts, they will literally say that ISPs are allowed to do the out-of-line things they will try. Pi and the FTC know they can't do a damn thing about it. Because guess what? Contract carriers don't have to follow any non-discrimination policy. And the way we had an open and free web is when the ISPs could not discriminate. Now they can. Anybody that thinks discrimination, actual fucking discrimination, is somehow going to give us more internet freedom is high as fuck. Yeah, bro, my internet freedom.
To the general public with complete impartiality towards the public interest. This reclassification for ISPs under Title II gave the FCC the authority with which to ensure that ISPs like AT&T, Comcast, and Verizon would be unable to legally block, throttle, or otherwise interfere with web traffic in order to
legally block, throttle, or otherwise interfere with internet traffic. They still did it. And guess what? When they got caught, prosecuted for it. Now that they will no longer be considered under Title II, they are no longer common carriers. They no longer have an obligation to you. They can do whatever they want with the internet you pay for. Before Title II, they acted like the arbiters that owned our internet. After Title II, it was our internet. They could not and would not dare divide us. They could not and would not dare deny us. Now they don't have to listen to a damn thing you say. They're just provided to be transparent about it. But guess what? What are you going to do about it? They have every right to do it now. Doesn't matter if it's just. That's what was justified. And that's not a scare fucking tactic. My God. What levels of Barovian autism have to come out of someone's mouth to come to that conclusion? It's Thursday. Molly's not here till Friday. And Saturday. Otherwise, we all have our own designated days by the schedule of Radio Molly and such.
preserve the internet's level playing field. And in 2013, it was shown qualitatively what the internet was slowly devolving into without the protection of net neutrality under Title II. With ISPs like Comcast and Verizon throttling services like Netflix, which was and is a competitor to their own streaming service interests. On the graph on your screen now, you can see what happened when Netflix relented and paid Comcast's mob-style protection racket requirements in order to, quote, ensure reasonable speeds on an internet service already being paid by us, the consumers. And this is but one example of service throttling.
After Netflix pays Comcast, speeds improve 65%. So this isn't some fairy tale or myth. They did this shit. It's not fear-mongering. They did this shit. The nerve of these people to say that it's a fairy tale or a delusion or that nothing will happen to your internet. It's not your internet anymore. Once they are no longer classified under Title II, that's when it automatically stopped being your internet. It's their internet. They provide it to you. And they tell you what you're getting, and there's no way for you to negotiate it. They tell you what sites you get to see, and there's no way to negotiate it. They tell you that they're throttling in favor of their services, and there's no discourse for it. There's no avenue for recourse, because it's not against the law for them to do that to you. It's the whole purpose people fought for net neutrality, fought for Title II. It wasn't a matter of regulations make it illegal for them to do certain things and perform in certain practices. The FCC's hands were tied. Unless ISPs were taken out from being private contract distributors, they would have been allowed to do whatever the hell they want with your internet. Whatever the hell they want. Ajit Pai is not for the consumer. If he was, he would realize the internet was way better off when it was a utility for us. He's not for the consumer. No matter how many times proponents of this new act say it, he's not for the consumer. He just took away the one thing that would have classified these ISPs as having to give us the internet we pay for. Now they don't. We pay, they give us whatever speed they want. Does that sound fair to you? Because it's not fear-mongering. It's happened before. But it's fear-mongering, oh.
That one can find from the 2013 to 2014 time period until ISPs were reclassified under Title II in 2015. And these actions are something that Ajit Pai has stated numerous times in the past as never having even occurred, making hyperbolic references to a dystopian internet when the facts of the matter at hand are plainly laid out before us, and thanks to Pai's repeal of net neutrality, history will be doomed to repeat itself. The streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, YouTube, Twitch, and so many others will once again face the threat of potentially being forced to deal with mob-style protection rackets yet again and pay ISPs in order to avoid throttling. While at the same time, ISPs will be allowed to double down on their greed and not only charge these services for what we already had, but they will be able to charge their customers more for the same thing as well, creating add-on packages designed to allow you to customize your internet experience. Want social media at your full bandwidth? That'll be an extra $2.99 per month. Otherwise, you'll still get your social media, but only at 600K or some such nonsense. You like streaming? We have this fantastic internet package that allows you a full 10 meg download rate for any video content on any of the listed services for only $5.99 per month. If not, you'll still get the same experience with those services, but only at 720p or lower. Or you can get both for $8.99 a month extra, but this offer is only good for a limited time. After that, all these services will increase by $2, so you'd better act now. And what will happen to those services? Well, we already saw what happened when Netflix was forced to pay Comcast and Verizon. They raised their rates for their customers in order to compensate. Hulu? Yeah, Hulu would have to do the same thing. It happened before and it will happen again, which places an even greater burden on the American public. And what of the platform we're on now? What of YouTube? Now, forgive me for expressing a little concern about the welfare of my own channel, but it does rely on the existence of YouTube to be able to grow and to flourish, just as so many hundreds of thousands of others. And we all know that YouTube is currently operating at a deficit. How much worse will that be if YouTube, the most popular video streaming platform in the world, is forced to pay these same protection fees? How much until Google decides to cut their losses and abandon YouTube altogether? What if this forces YouTube to charge viewers fees themselves for services in addition to advertisements? And I'm not talking about YouTube Red, which is actually a very good program that I wish they would roll out to other countries en masse, but what if they're forced to gate content entirely behind a paywall in order to cover their expenditures to ISPs? And we could very easily see all of that happen. And the difficulty is not limited to American soil when it comes to this either. You know, all those services like YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Twitch, Steam, and GOG, to name a few. Yeah, they're all based within the US, and I know people will say, yeah, that won't affect us. We have servers over here. You ever wonder how their server infrastructure actually worked, though? You ever stop to think about how those servers maintain data consistency? They're not completely autonomous. They replicate data from each other, and in the case of services like YouTube, they replicate a lot of data. That data goes over the lines of internet service providers like Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, and so many more. This will place a burden on those services to also pay those protection rackets in order to continue doing business overseas as well as within the US. So this sort of thing doesn't just affect Americans, it affects people across the world. But thankfully, hopefully, the FCC and Ajit Pai will not have the final say. Right now, people are continuing to reach out to their senators and state representatives as it is being pushed now for what is called the Congressional Review Act, which will empower Congress to overturn the FCC's decision to ignore the will of the American people. And this might well be the last-ditch effort to save net neutrality, as the FCC ruling will also prevent state and local governments from enacting their own policies that run counter to what is determined by the FCC in this regard.
Any of that sound pro-consumer to you? Any of it? Any of it at all? He doesn't want to repeal net neutrality. He doesn't want to repeal net neutrality. But it was just pointed out that without Title II, these regulations can't be enforced against the ISPs. And that's true. It can't. FCC regulations are only adjourned under Title II common carriers. The FCC will have no authority. And the Federal Trade Commission, they can only disbar unlawful business practices. It will be absolutely lawful for them to screw you. Maybe not ethical, per se. But I'm sure they'll be given a few $1 million or so to keep their mouths shut. You're not going to have any recourse. None. So you better keep fighting while there's a gateway option. I'm just saying. If you don't, you'll be paying for it.
To that end, I'm going to put a link in the description of this video for battleforthenet.com, and I would urge you all to make use of it. This will allow you to quickly either tweet or call those representatives in order to urge them to take a stand for net neutrality, and it will also provide you the added benefit of...
You know what? This is for you. Seems that Team Cable is also pretty expansive. Am I going to spam my congressmen and senators? Yes, I am. And I advise you do the same. Look. Gibbs, Wenstrup. Portman. Joyce. Whatever the fuck your name is. Turner. Tieberry. You're gonna see me do this live. I'm not just going to tweet them. I'm going to call them. Every single one of them. One at a time. You have already sent this tweet. Davidson. Brown. Fudge. Okay. Capteur. Ryan. Ugh. Wow, Twitter, your character limit doesn't help out here. Dumbass. Twitter, you fucking dumbasses. Yeah, your pro-net neutrality asses are so fucking useful. Yeah, no, fuck you, Twitter. Good job. You know what? Fuck the tweets. I'm moving on to the phone calls. All? Enter my phone? Alright. Just a second. Why don't you all join me? I'm about to rock the boat.
Enter your zip code so we can look up your member of Congress. Like to make calls at the same time every day? Press 1 to become a daily caller. Or stay on the line to take calls today. Thanks for becoming a daily caller. Call you tomorrow at about this time. We'll now connect you to decision makers. When you're done, press star to move on to the next call. You can use the script on your screen, or if you can't see it, tell them you support the existing net neutrality rule and that you would like them to support a resolution of disapproval to overturn the FCC December vote. You're now connecting to the Cincinnati office of Representative Brad Wenstrup. Thank you for calling the office of Representative Brad Wenstrup, serving Ohio's 2nd Congressional District. Our office is open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5 p.m. Unfortunately, we are currently unavailable to take your call at the moment. Please
That's
leave
okay.
your name, number, home address, and a detailed message, and we will be sure to address your concerns. Thank you for calling.
Just a second.
the Lancaster office of Representative Steve Stivers.
Steve Stivers.
Hi, this is Congressman Steve Stivers, and you've reached my district office. We are here to serve you Monday through Friday from 8:30 in the morning until 5:30 in the evening.
All
If you
right.
call during those hours, all the lines are busy. And if you would just leave your name and phone number and address and any message after the tone, we will call you back. It's my honor to serve as your congressman. I look forward to addressing your issue. Again, this is Steve Stivers. Thank you for calling my congressional office.
Mr. Stivers, I am absolutely against this fundamental idea that getting rid of Title II regulations will do anything at all for internet consumers. I am absolutely against that idea, sir, and I've educated myself quite well on net neutrality, and I understand that these regulations had existed before 2015. People cannot deceive me on that. So I just want to say to you, as my representative, as the representative of all Ohioans, I think it's in our best interests that you keep up the site that we apply to our jobs on. Now, I know these regulations won't come into place almost instantly, but I do know that the moment Title II is taken off of internet service providers, they will be private contractors again, and they can do whatever they want with our internet. Make us pay more, throttle our sites, all sorts of different things. And no, I know that's not fear-mongering. I know that's not a fairy tale, and I am so sick of these games people are playing with me. Now, I will be civil about this, but I am going to be a nuisance, sir. I will be calling every day on the hour to let you know that you should overturn that FCC vote. And if you can't do that, then perhaps do something to have that little rule in there against state municipalities amended. Because I think that Cincinnati and the rest of Ohio have a right to say whether they want net neutrality regulations to be enforced or not. I don't think the FCC has any regulation whatsoever to tell Ohioans what they can do with their state, their land, their farms, their homes, their towns, and their communities. I will be calling time and time again, Mr. Stivers. This is not the last you will hear of me. I will be absolutely civil in this manner. I am a bit stern-voiced because I am not happy about this whatsoever. I do believe the FCC chairman just abided a blatant disregard of public opinion, and I'm a little fuming about that. I also believe that FCC chairman Ajit Pai abided identity theft, as the Attorney General wanted to proceed with an investigation and postponed the vote until then because of all of these allegations of dead people's names that were being used against net neutrality, Mr. Stivers, and I think it should be taken a lot more seriously than it is. I will not stop calling. I will not stop being a nuisance.
Maximum time allowed to make your recording. To review or re-record your message, press 1.
All right, let's hear
Mark your
this.
message urgent, press 2. To mark your message
Oh, let's see who's
private,
next.
Press 3. Send your message as is, press the pound key.
Pound key.
Your message has been sent. To
There's
send a message
a
to
limit
a
on his.
subscriber, enter the area
Cute.
code and phone number of that subscriber, or press the star key to enter your own mailbox.
No, thank you. Those are my two representatives in my district. Now, from what I understand, all right. Is Wenstrup a proponent I do not want to see that Ohio representatives are proponents of cable. Those were the two representatives I could call up. Did I give him hell? Yes, I did, but I didn't swear. I wasn't mean. As long as you're civil, pretty much, you can say whatever the hell you want. And I think I was very civil and straightforward with my argument, and I think he got the message, especially since I overcapped his his voicemail. He's gonna know that I cut off, but I think he's gonna know how I feel about that. These are the other members of Congress who have come out against the FCC plan. Thank them and ask them to vote for the CRA. What's the CRA? So, these are all the representatives that have come out in opposition to the FCC, right here. What am I doing? Give me a second here. All these guys. These are my representatives. All these are my representatives. And it's specifically Wenstrup, and Stivers. At least I don't look like Drew Carey. Now I do. I am bound and determined to do what is right. I will fight until the bitter end. That is not the last call I'm going to make to these fuckers. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And I stand up and fight for what I believe. What does everybody else do? Who gives a damn? All that matters at the end of the day is what I do with my decisions, my choices, and my life. I'm not going to pressure you guys into doing this, but I've provided you with all the tools you need to get started. And I'll post this link again, because I think you deserve those tools to see that vote happily repealed. Now let's count the number of representatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, 142, 143, 144, 145, 146, 147, 148, 149, 150, 151, 152, 153, 154, 155, 156, 157, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 170, 171, 172, 173, 174, 175, 176, 177, 178, 179, 180, 181, 182, 183, 184, 185, 186, 187, 188, 189, 190, 191, 192, 193, 194, 195, 196, 197, 198, 199, 200, 201, 202, 203. That's 203 representatives that are currently absolutely on our side. Looks like there might be far less for cable. Let's check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, 121, 122, 123, 124, 125, 126, 127, 128, 129, 130, 131, 132, 133, 134, 135, 136, 137, 138, 139, 140, 141, 142, 143, 144, 145, 146, 147, 148, 149, 150, 151, 152, 153, 154, 155, 156, 157, 158, 159, 160, 161, 162, 163, 164, 165, 166, 167, 168, 169, 180, 181, 182, 183, 184, 185, 186, 187, 188, 189, 190. It seems like there are less supporters of cable than there are of the internet. Now, of course, that isn't going to mean anything. The votes of each state have different values. If the fucking ISPs get the support of the bigger states' representatives, fuck. So what have we got? MENECOPAWACA. Let me look and see if there are any Ohio representatives that support this. Let's continue.
Seeing on which side of the issue your state's representatives fall on, so you'll better know who to vote for or against in the next election. The free and open internet, as well as the American people, received a giant fuck you from Ajit Pai and Donald J. Trump today, and while I tend to do my best to avoid politics on my channel, this involves the gaming world just as much as anyone else, and because of that, I would urge my viewers to send them a great big fuck you right back and tell your state representatives that you expect them to support net neutrality and fight against Ajit Pai's ruling. And as always, please do let me know what you think about all of this down in the comments below. Special thanks to the members of the 20 and Up Club Patreon donators. Their names are listed down below as well. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Sid Alpha, and I'll see you next time.
Awesome. Everybody likes some Philly D? Let's show some Philly D.
What's up, you beautiful bastards? Hope you've had a fantastic Thursday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we have to talk about today is it has finally happened. The FCC, in a 3-2 vote, voted to kill net neutrality. And watching it happen so casually on C-SPAN 3, I was infuriated.
With that, we will call the vote. Commissioner Clyburn.
I dissent.
Commissioner O'Reilly.
Aye.
Commissioner Carr.
Aye.
Commissioner Rosenworcel.
I dissent.
The chair votes aye. The item is adopted with editorial privileges granted as requested.
Ajit Pai walking what, in my opinion, is a horrible decision across the finish line, despite everything showing the American people do not want this. I can't fully tell if he is just ignorant or he is trolling at this point. You might have even seen his smug-ass video where he says, like, 7 things you can do after net neutrality. And it's just him being, I guess the scientific term would be a fuckboy, playing with a fidget spinner and doing the Harlem Shake. Despite what some anti-commenters have been saying online, who speak really loud so it must be true, or speak really fast so they must be smart. Despite them seemingly getting their rocks off to be so anti, most Americans still realize net neutrality is a very, very important thing. It's something we need moving forward based off of what we've seen very large companies try to do in the past, and also because of what we've seen massive corporations do in other countries in parallel industries. Yes, there are other problems with the internet which actually make net neutrality even more important. Specifically, I'm talking about the lack of options in your area for ISPs. It's like if you're on a cliff and you're trying to get better footing on the cliff, you don't first hurl yourself off the cliff. And your mindset is, we'll figure out how to get both feet back on the ground over here. Now, like I said, the vote was 3-2, and the dissenting votes were very passionate.
I dissent from this rash decision to roll back net neutrality rules. I dissent from the corrupt process that has brought us to this point. And I dissent from the contempt this agency has shown our citizens in pursuing this path today. This decision puts the Federal Communications Commission on the wrong side of history, the wrong side of the law, and the wrong side of the American public.
But what saddens me the most today is that the agency that is supposed to protect you is actually abandoning you. But what I am pleased to be able to say today is that the fight to save net neutrality does not end today. The agency does not have the final word. Thank goodness for that. And as I close my eulogy of the 2015 net neutrality rules, carefully crafted rules that actually struck an appropriate balance in providing consumer protections and enabling opportunities and investment, I actually take what I'll just call ironic comfort in the words of then Commissioner Pai back in 2015, because I believe this will ring true about this destroying internet freedom order. I am optimistic, he said, that we will look back on today's vote as an aberration, a temporary deviation from the bipartisan path that has served us so well. I don't know whether this plan will be vacated by a court, reversed by Congress, or overturned by a future commission, but I do believe that its days are numbered. Amen to that, Mr. Chairman. Amen to that.
And if you need me to paraphrase that last part, it was go fuck yourself, pie. And also what Commissioner Clyburn said is true. The fight is not over. A lot of people asked me why I didn't talk about the story yesterday, and that was because I knew that this was going to pass. It was going to be a 3-2 vote. And now is the moment people need to realize this is happening. If you do not want this to happen, you need to make yourself known and take a step forward. The first thing to do is to contact your congressman. If you want an easy way to find out who exactly you should be calling, what maybe you should be saying, what's the number? I'll include links down below that will get you to the right place. Or you can even just text BATTLE to 384-387. Contact your congressman and let them know you want net neutrality. We need Congress to use the Congressional Review Act to pass a resolution of disapproval. This allows Congress to overrule any regulations enacted by federal agencies. Contact your congressperson and let them know what you want. Yes, the GOP has control of both House and Senate, but people are not divided completely on party lines. Which is also a weird thing to say because in recent polling, 3 out of 4 Republican voters said they were actually against the repeal of net neutrality. And so it's wild to me how many Republicans are for it, but there are several Republicans that have spoken out against this move. And in fact, even Senator Ed Markey has already tweeted, I plan to introduce a Congressional Review Act resolution that would restore the open internet order and reverse the FCC's historic mistake of repealing net neutrality. This fight is far from over. So push, 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 let them know. And if they get enough calls, maybe they'll listen because they'll realize, oh shit, not only do I want to do what the people want, but I also want to be reelected. Those damn elections are always just around the corner. Another thing we're most likely also going to see are lawsuits. Reportedly, both the Electronic Frontier Foundation and Free Press are prepared to sue. The legal director of the Electronic Frontier Foundation saying the legal challenge would likely be based on the Administrative Procedures Act, pointing to the FCC's willful refusal to acknowledge both the economic and technical evidence and also the numerous flaws in the commenting process. And that commenting process was also a very big deal. There were a ton of fake comments, many from bots. There were reports coming out saying 2 million of the comments were from stolen identities. Some saying 500,000 comments from Russia. Also, potentially, we might see local and state governments fight against this. But even with that said, the FCC has stated they plan to preempt state laws. So while the situation looks dark, actually, it doesn't just look dark, it is dark. Please start calling, mailing, tweeting at your representative. The only day the internet becomes completely ruined is the day that people no longer fight for it to be free and open. I know it can feel like the calling, the messaging, it's not going to accomplish something. It is the far most effective thing you can do. And the next best thing you could do would be to see where your representative falls and then vote accordingly when their seat is up for grabs. And if there's a final note I can make on this story is don't let them steal this from you. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today, and today in Awesome brought to you by Audible. If you haven't heard already, I teamed up with Audible for our official DeFranco book club. We go through a book once a month, and whether you want to join that or you just want a free audiobook, just go to audible.com/PhillyD, you sign up, you get a 30-day trial membership. Along with that, you get a free audiobook. You can actually also do a text sign up now. Just text PhillyD to 500-500. You get started from there right on your phone. And this month, we're going to be going through Turtles All the Way Down, of course, by John Green, the same man who wrote The Fault in Our Stars, Paper Towns, popularized the word doobly-doo. So if you want to just consume it with us, you know the way. And if you actually want to film a review, a secret link, movies from 20th century, well, as that streaming service has expanded. There's also been concern that kneeling above alleged drugging, Johnson.
Alright, that's all I wanted. I don't care about the other stuff. What's here? That's my favorites bar open. I hate it when that happens. There we go. Hey, you're not gonna allow me access to my... Let's see what else we can find about net neutrality, huh, ladies and gentlemen? See what they're saying on Facebook about it. Looks like there hasn't been anything for the net neutrality homepage since 2014. Alright, well we know the one shit show place we can count on to see various different posts. Twitter. The shithole of information. Hashtag net neutrality. Let's see what we got here. Well, there goes the internet. I had fun, y'all. Picture this. It's 2018. I'm in college doing a research paper. I'm already paying an insane amount of money for tuition, but now I have to pay to search for sources. What a time to be alive. Hashtag net neutrality. Hashtag RIP hashtag net neutrality. I guess this means we're taking it back to day one. 3D pinball space cadet. I remember this thing. I know I'm in the UK and it doesn't affect me that much, but today's decision to remove net neutrality is awful. The net should be a place of freedom. Man, the FCC repealing net neutrality is just like, please pay $4.99 to read Punchline. There's still hope to save net neutrality. Congress will have to take it from here in January. So let's hope they listen to the majority and understand this is blatantly wrong. So just keep calling. Just keep sending letters. Just keep tweeting them. Use the link I provided. It'll give you their numbers. It will give you their Twitters. It will give you everything. No, lady. I don't care about net neutrality. Finally, people will be minding their own business and we'll all be happy. That's not what net neutrality is. Net neutrality was so they wouldn't charge you out the ass, genius. Coming to an internet near you. Would you look at that? Oh, that just looks so fun. If we lose net neutrality, we won't ever get it back. Ever. No, that's true. We won't. This act will literally have a provision in place that will prevent net neutrality from ever coming back unless we find a way to get rid of or amend that act entirely. Oh, and state municipalities? Not going to happen. So like these cities and towns that are already building these municipalities, I wonder what the FCC is going to do to stop them. Oh, the agency that's going to protect you, yeah, we're going to prosecute you. Yeah, we're going to see how that goes over. A bunch of hicks enter the courtroom with guns and just put a bunch of bullets in the pie. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. Yeah, that sounds violent and out of fucking line, but that's what it's coming to. Don't tread on me is what it says, but they treaded the fuck on you. My Twitter just slightly froze for a second. Is this it? No, Me trying to understand net neutrality. Yeah. Don't want to pay $9.99 for Instagram, $4.99 for Twitter, $8.99 for YouTube. Save net neutrality. You already know what the fuck about to happen. Oh my god. In the face of adversity, they still shitpost. You will understand the mistake you made for taking away our freedom. Hashtag net neutrality at a cheap pie FCC. We're gonna go ahead and ignore that. I don't endorse doxing, but it looks like Anonymous did it. Ted Cruz just used the word snowflake in a tweet to insult supporters of net neutrality. I wish I had resources to write a $2,000 check to Beto O'Rourke. I am saddened to see the repeal of net neutrality. The internet as a fair playing field is part of what makes it such a special platform. We need to fight for legislative action to return fairness and equality to the internet. This is truly a dark day. Barack Obama warned us about net neutrality is a slow process of our freedoms being taken. So if you haven't called your congressman, do so now and tell them how much you are for net neutrality. Be polite but be stern. Let them know how big of a deal this is to you. Me and every other creator you watch, everything on the internet even depends on it. The students already pay for college and pay for books. Now we gotta pay to do our homework, that's mostly online. Lol, y'all have me all kinds of fucked up, my god.
Gets to decide which sites they use. It's been organized around basic principles of openness, fairness, and freedom. There are no gatekeepers deciding which sites you get to access. There are no toll roads on the information superhighway. This set of principles, the idea of net neutrality, has unleashed the power of the internet and given innovators the chance to thrive. Abandoning these principles
All right, Chris Wolf.
threaten to end the internet as we know it. That's why I'm laying out a plan to keep the internet free and open. And that's why I'm urging the Federal Communications Commission to do everything they can to protect net neutrality for everyone. They should make it clear that whether you use a computer, phone, or tablet, internet providers have a legal obligation not to block or limit your access to a website. Cable companies can't decide which online stores you can shop at or which streaming services you can use. And they can't let any company pay for priority over its competitors. To put these protections in place, I'm asking the FCC to reclassify internet service under Title II of a law known as the Telecommunications Act. In plain English, I'm asking them to recognize that for most Americans, the internet has become an essential part of everyday communication and everyday life. The FCC is an independent agency, and ultimately this decision is theirs alone. But the public has already commented nearly 4 million times, asking the FCC to make sure that consumers, not the cable company, gets to decide which sites they use. Americans are making their voices heard and standing up for the principles that make the internet a powerful force for change. As long as I'm president, that's what I'll be fighting for too.
Yeah, so that's what the evil Obama administration enacted. Now let's see this video.
You want to create a stunning website.
I've seen this video. I'm aware of it.
Let me show you how it's...
If you write anything on your computer...
2 ads, huh? Good job, Sitch.
So originally, this video was going to be entirely different. I was going to talk about how Ajit Pai, current head of the FCC, wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal. Which is weird, because it was reported that Donald Trump specifically asked Rupert Murdoch, the guy that owns the Wall Street Journal,
and also started the apocalypse.
Try again, motherfuckers. Who he should appoint to the position. And Murdoch said, Pai. So, what do you think, kids?
So, Rupert Murdoch was the one that recommended Ajit Pai to Donald Trump. Anybody that knows anything about News Corp probably realizes how terrible a reality that actually is. Because guess who the enemy of News Corp is? That's right. The internet. The internet.
Did the Wall Street Journal say in the article that the owner of the paper expressly endorsed this guy? No. Then I was going to refute Pai's points on an ideological level. Yo, consider yourself debunked, biatch. But then I did the unthinkable. Research. And what I found out is that Ajit Pai is a huge liar.
You are fake news.
And in fact, the entire anti-net neutrality argument is built on lies. I don't even need to make an ideological argument, so let's get into it. The anti-net neutrality lie is composed of 3 parts. 1. There was no internet regulation or net neutrality before 2015. 2. Everything was totally fine during this time period. There was no abuse of power by the ISPs. 3. Net neutrality was concocted out of thin air by Obama in 2014.
Who just wanted to shove his greasy regulatory government hands into private enterprise.
These are all wrong. Factually wrong. And in case you think I'm straw-manning, I'll read you the words straight from Ajit Pai's article. You know, the guy who actually makes a decision about net neutrality. How the FCC can save the open internet. We should undo the Obama administration's rules that regulate the web like a 1930s utility. As millions flock to the web.
It doesn't regulate the web like a 1930s utility. The Title II that I made for ISPs was specifically designed for the year of 2015. You know what that means? It was a modern-day Title II that took the opinions, ideals, and consents of free and open market and innovation and the people into consideration. The Title II regulation was specifically there so that the net neutrality principle could be enforced. There was no rate regulation. There was no massive government oversight, only enforcement of the regulation. So whoever the hell was on the FCC that promoted that sort of thing was completely on our side. I'm already aware of this, but don't take it from me. Let this guy explain it to you.
For the first time in the 1990s, President Clinton and Republican Congress decided to preserve the vibrant and competitive free market that presently exists for the internet. In the Telecommunications Act of 1996, the government called for an internet unfettered by federal or state regulation. The result of that fateful decision was the greatest free market success story in history.
But that changed in 2014. Just days after a poor midterm election result, President Obama publicly pressured the Federal Communications Commission to reject the long-standing consensus on a market-based approach to the internet. He instead urged the agency to impose upon internet service providers a creaky regulatory framework called Title II.
Bullshit. The Ninth Circuit courts pressured the FCC to do it, or they would undo net neutrality regulations and the regulations would not be enforced. That's what happened. The Ninth Circuit Court pressured them to put ISPs under Title II. After a lawsuit from a very popular ISP known as Verizon. Or should I say, unpopular.
Which was designed in the 19...
It was actually a telephone company, but the fucking cunts were trying out internet and shit, and because these phones and shit were now trying out internet and providing people with broadband connections, they should have been classified as ISPs, and that's absolutely fair. And that's a big, large thing that made Title II work. They all had phones or some form of communication service in their jurisdiction, as well as phone plans. Comcast did too. Xfinity. And that's how they were able to be classified under Title II of the Federal Communications Act. That is the most false fucking statement I have ever seen. Repubtards don't seem to understand that. I am not making fun of Republicans. Just like when I talk about SJWs, I am not making fun of Democrats. I am making fun of fucking retarded fanatics that only deal in absolutes and believe that our freedom and sovereignty can only be protected by destroying the things that they are... that are purely from their opposition. I fetter to say there is not one thing that a hardcore, die-hard, Trump supporter that has gotten themselves fucked up the ass several times by Trump's administration so far and still remains loyal to him. I doubt there is a single Democratic regulation or Democratic idea that they think was a good idea. So healthcare? Fuck you. Less government control. We need less government control. We're gonna fucking justify screwing over thousands of people as government control. We're so mature. I saw this coming from a fucking mile away. And I have to say, you're not right just because you're right. You're right because you use your goddamn brain.
30s to tame the mobile telephone monopoly. In the next few weeks, anti-market ideologues
like...
By the way, I'm not pro-Democrat. Like, at all. I fucking hate Hillary Clinton. I was rooting for the Trump camp just because they were anti-Hillary. I was rooting for the Trump camp because they were tired of these emotional fucking sentiments absorbing the public consensus. The press, Hollywood, all these different multi-million-dollar entities trying to silence alternatives and fucking tell people how to think and how to feel. That was going on. That's not propaganda. That's not paranoia. It cannot be disputed. That was going on. What's going on now? Oh, we're gonna completely fucking protect the consumer and the American people by untethering these businesses 10 fucking fold, just like we did with Glass-Steagall. Fucking idiots. They're repeating the same mistakes that caused the financial plight of the millennial generation. You want to know where that financial plight exists? Most people are going to have to go to college just to get an entry-level job. Do you know how much people have to pay for a college education? And do you know at large how many people actually manage to pay back that debt? Not a lot. Now imagine. Oh, we care so much about small and rural areas. That's why we rolled back financial plans that actually made it possible for them to afford internet. And now we're going to roll back net neutrality, which made it so that their one ISP that they're fucking stuck with can't throttle the shit out of them. That's how I think this is going to go down. Without the Title II regulations, there's not a lot people can do about ISPs. And I think that's why it was done. Because the circuit courts demanded it. They will not enforce these regulations unless ISPs are under Title II. And I think Pi knows that.
Are going to try to scare the American people. They'll argue that government control is the only way to ensure a free and open internet. They'll assert that repealing utility-style regulation will destroy the internet as we know it and harm innovation. They'll allege that free speech online is at risk. Don't fall for the fear-mongering.
Instead, fall for this pack of lies I'm telling you.
We have proof the markets work. For almost 2 decades, the U.S. had a free and open internet without these heavy-handed rules.
Yes, they had a free and open internet that was being charged and throttled out the ass by Comcast and other ISPs. We have evidence of this. And it doesn't matter whether it's 1 or 1 million ISPs. The ISP market is not a competitive one. There's like 1 or 2 ISPs, and most of them have formed oligopolies that say, oh, we're going to charge the same rates as one another. Are they trying to compete? Maybe. But who knows? Maybe they're just interested in making more money at large, and they're happier screwing people's wallets than they are competing with one another for the cash. That's a bad thing.
There was no market failure before 2015. Americans weren't living in a digital dystopia before the FCC seized power.
To the contrary, millions enjoyed an online economy that was the envy of the world. So if that's all a lie, where does it all begin? The year is 1996. Pokemon had just come out, and unlike today,
Pokemon go to the...
If anyone saw someone over the age of 13 playing Pokemon, they called you nerd. Congress had just passed the Telecommunications Act. The primary purpose of this I'm not going to get into because it's a long enough story for its own video. But they did tack on a little section about the internet at the end of it. And when I say little, I mean little. The whole thing was 128 pages long, and the internet part was about 3/4 of a single page. And it didn't even get its own titled section. It was under Protection for Private Blocking and Screening of Offensive Material. And all it basically said was, we're not going to clearly define or regulate the internet at all. And who can blame them? It was the 90s. The internet still looked like this. And I'm not sure why they were so worried about offensive material. Do you even remember trying to look up porn on a 56K modem?
Yeah!
So yeah, at first the lie holds up, but then reality hits. Lawsuit after lawsuit began piling up all around the country about the internet and what ISPs were doing. And since the law was so vague and so open-ended, judges were like, WTF, mate? And there were conflicting rulings about similar issues. And the people were like, hey! 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 Congress, want to do something about this? And Congress was like, what? So the FCC sprung into action. Well, 2 years later in 1998, they sprung into action. It was a slow spring. They saw the chaos and confusion and said, we must do something. We must save these people. We must commission a study where we figure out
What the fuck to do?
So they did just that, and it only took 4 years.
So it took them 4 years for the first study. Yes, the evil-handed regulations have begun.
It's 2002. Bush is president, and everyone's still feeling pretty good about the whole war thing. The FCC released the Cable Modem Order, where they clearly defined what the internet was and created a very, very, very limited regulatory framework. There's a funny bit on page 22, where they say, the Communications Act does not clearly indicate how cable modem service should be classified or regulated. The relevant statutory provisions do not yield easy or obvious answers to the questions at hand, and the case law interpreting those provisions is extensive and complex. Which is basically like the FCC saying to Congress, yo mama's so fat, when she gets on a scale, it says,
the federal government has mandated that only one person may weigh themselves at a time.
I remind you that the document they're insulting in 2002 is the same one Pi is filleting now. But still, the order acted primarily to clarify things rather than to regulate, so the lie still seems to hold true. But the FCC said in the order that there were still many unanswered questions about the internet and that they would require more time to study them. So they did. For 3 more years. And here is where it begins, where the pie lie begins to crumble. The FCC releases a 3-page Fair Internet Policy Statement. In it, they do reaffirm that ISP providers are not titled to carriers, but the FCC still has regulatory power over them, granted through the Communications Act, the same one Pi was sucking off.
Title simply refers to the different parts of the law that telecommunications services are regulated under. Title II gives the government more authority to regulate a business. So without Title II, government has less authority to regulate a business. And in this situation, consumers needed government regulation. This wasn't some tyrannical thing where we handed the internet over to them. We wanted them to regulate the people that were throttling our internet.
So the FCC created 4 principles to encourage broadband development and preserve and promote the open and interconnected nature of the public internet. Consumers are entitled to access the lawful internet content of their choice. Consumers are entitled to run applications and use services of their choice, subject to the needs of law enforcement. Consumers are entitled to connect their choice of legal devices that do not harm the network. Consumers are entitled to competition among network providers, application and service providers, and content providers. Now you may be thinking, Sitch, these policy statements sound very similar to the net neutrality principles, which, you're right, good job, you get a cookie. And if you don't know what the net neutrality principles are, don't worry, we'll get to that later. So we can already see that Pi Lies 1 and 3 are wrong. As the year is 2005, so obviously Obama was still in Kenya.
Yeah, that was 10 years before the Obama regulation enacted that shit. So in 2005, the first principles of net neutrality existed. But you're about to see why that didn't work out.
And this sets the regulatory groundwork for net neutrality. But of course, Pi doesn't want you to know that, because he thinks it sounds a lot better if he can blame Obama instead of Bush. But don't worry, dear friends, the Pi Lie's about to get a whole lot worse. And things are about to get real. The year is 2007. Hipsters are far less annoying, and the public was eagerly awaiting the release of the legendary Spider-Man 3.
Oh god.
But more importantly, Comcast existed, which explained by Newton's second law of thermodynamic sucking, yes, Comcast sucked even back then. You see, Comcast users noticed something mighty peculiar. Their gosh darn peer-to-peer programs weren't working. You know, things like BitTorrent, LimeWire, Kazam. All P2P software was running super slow. Almost as if it was being throttled. Users did all sorts of tests and discovered that yes, in fact Comcast was secretly throttling all P2P program speeds. And you know what Comcast did when they were confronted about this? They lied. What? Us? No, we're not doing that. The problem must be on your end. However, P2P programs are perfectly legal. It's only specific copyrighted materials being shared that's illegal. But instead of going through the proper channels to get that stuff removed, Comcast was like, fuck it, and just throttled the whole thing. And the reason Comcast was doing this in the first place is because Comcast owns a plethora of television networks and movie studios. So their company was losing money when stuff was being pirated. But if you remember the 2005 FCC policy, whoopsies! We got a violation here. So the FCC investigated. Of course, Comcast at first lied to the FCC. What? Throttling the internet? No. And it was only after the FCC did their own testing and proved that Comcast was the one doing this, they were like, okay, you got us. Tee-hee. Even though they still lied about their motivation for doing it, citing network congestion, so the FCC ordered a formal complaint. I shall now read parts of it to you. Statement of Chairman Kevin J. Martin. Would it be okay if the post office opened your mail, decided they didn't want to bother delivering it, and hid that fact by sending it back to you stamped address unknown? Return to sender? Or would it be okay when someone sends you a first-class stamped letter, if the post office opened it, decided that because the mail trucks were full sometimes, letters to you could just wait, and then hid both that they read your letters and delayed them? Unfortunately, that is exactly what Comcast was doing with their subscribers' internet traffic. Comcast was delaying subscribers' downloads and blocking their uploads. It was doing so 24/7, regardless of the amount of congestion on the network or how small the file might be. Even worse, Comcast was hiding that fact by making affected users think that there was a problem with their internet connection or the application. Today, the Commission tells Comcast to stop and to disclose to its subscribers how it's going to manage traffic on a going forward basis. We therefore take another important step to ensure that all consumers have unfettered access to the internet. we begin by...
Yeah, so remember how people said there was no evidence of the things net neutrality was preventing happened? There's your evidence. There's your evidence right there.
Affirming that the Commission can and will enforce the principle that consumers should be able to access any content and any application. This should come as no surprise. 3 years ago, the Commission declared that it would not hesitate to act if faced with evidence that a provider was violating this principle by blocking consumers' access to content or applications. Last year, the current Commission unanimously reiterated that we have the ability to adopt and enforce the net neutrality principles announced in the Internet Policy Statement. Oh, look, what's this? I guess every pie has been destroyed. Because in 2007, Comcast did the very thing people are worried they would do without net neutrality. Wow. Comcast lying to its customers and the government? It's a good thing we have regulatory agencies that can call them out on their bullshit. Freedom isn't free. Our actions today is not about regulating the internet. Indeed, I have consistently opposed calls for legislation or rules to impose network neutrality. Like many other policymakers and members of Congress, I have said such legislation or rules are unnecessary because the Commission already has the tools it needs to punish a bad actor. Ooh, it looks like the pie lies are completely dead. As in 2007, the FCC was already operating under the idea that it had the regulatory powers granted to it later by net neutrality. Failure to act here would have reasonably led to the conclusion that new legislation and rules are necessary.
Stop! He's already dead.
We need
God
to
damn.
protect consumers' access. While Comcast has said it would stop the arbitrary blocking, consumers deserve to know that the commitment is backed by legal enforcement.
Yes. Oh, we won't do it again. Then they have to be transparent about it. But there is no method of recourse against these people since the Ninth Circuit Court already opposed net neutrality when it didn't have the Title II regulations. They had to add those on. Tack them on even. They were forced to. Because guess what? Then, all we have is the ISP's word that they won't throttle us. Guess what? Their word isn't worth shit on a donkey's dick.
It's 2010. Inception came out, ruining foghorns forever.
What's going on here?
The Last Airbender came out, ruining M. Night forever.
What a twist!
And Waiting for Superman came out. A horrible, horrible, manipulative, utter piece of shit documentary that serves only to assuage the director's liberal guilt for sending his kids to private school while having absolutely zero clue about what's actually wrong with education in the US. Fuck that movie and fuck Davis Guggenheim. Anyways, the legal battle of Comcast versus the FCC had finally come to an end. It was basically like this. Comcast settled a class action suit with its customers for $16 million. Comcast gave in to the FCC and stopped throttling P2P services. But Comcast still sued the FCC, saying they overstepped their authority. So basically, Comcast was that annoying whiny kid who gets in trouble and says, "Fine, I'll do it, but not 'cause you told me to." So the court said, "Actually, Comcast is right." And the FCC was like, the court told the FCC that their arguments sucked, and their 3-page policy standards had not provided the proper reasoning for having regulatory control over ISP providers, who are not classified as Title II.
Exactly. Because they aren't classified as Title II, The government doesn't have a lot of powers to enforce their regulations on ISPs. There has to be legal defense behind it. The ISPs don't care what line they have to cross or how many people they piss off. The only thing they answer to are the courts. If there is no method of recourse against these people, they will do anything they want. Period. This here shows that.
And the FCC was like, oh, is that how it is? Is that how it is? Yeah, that's exactly how it is. Fine, we'll just go and write a new order, and this one will be way better and way longer. So the FCC went and did exactly that. And uncharacteristically, it didn't take them 3 years. It only took them 8 months when they released the Open Internet Order. And true to their word, it wasn't 3 pages. It was 194. In the order, the FCC laid out 3 rules. To provide greater clarity and certainty regarding the continued freedom and openness of the internet, we adopt 3 basic rules that are grounded in broadly accepted internet norms, as well as our own prior decisions. Transparency. Fixed and mobile broadband providers must disclose the network management practices, performance characteristics, and terms and conditions of their broadband services. No blocking. Fixed broadband providers may not block lawful content, application services, or non-harmful devices. Mobile broadband providers may not block lawful websites or block applications that compete with their voice or video telephony services. No unreasonable discrimination. Fixed broadband providers may not unreasonably discriminate in transmitting lawful network traffic. Hey, that sounds almost exactly like the same rules as net neutrality. And all the ISP giants were like, grrr, arr, we have to do something about this. And then Verizon was like,
oh hey guys, let me do it. I want to join the Cool Kids Club.
So almost exactly 1 month after the order came out, Verizon sued the FCC, claiming they did not have the right to impose the regulations in that order. It's 2014, where one superhero franchise is dying, and another is being saved. Only for this to ironically switch places a few short years later. But more importantly, the legal battle between Verizon and the FCC has now come to an end. And the court said, hey FCC, we agree with everything you said about why you need to regulate ISPs in this way, in order to protect customers and promote economic and technological growth. But in 2002, you didn't classify ISPs as Title II common carriers, and you still didn't do that in the 2011 order. So you still don't have the authority to impose these regulations. Oh.
Exactly. No Title II. They don't have a right to impose. Pi knows this. I'm telling you. He knows this. They don't have the right to enforce these pro-consumer regulations without Title II. That is what the circuit courts told them. This is the point I have been making time and time again. Title II goes, they can't protect us. So, just a thought. In this restoring internet freedom thing, maybe they shouldn't remove the burdensome Title II regulations. Yes, I will be condescending about that. Because how somebody could be that blatantly stupid is unacceptable.
I see how it is. Well, you brought this on yourselves. The FCC passed the Net Neutrality Order in 2015. There it established 3 rules. 1. The clear bright lines rule. No blocking, throttling, or paid prioritization, which means no fast lanes. 2. No unreasonable interference or unreasonable disadvantage to consumers or edge providers. Edge providers are things like Netflix and Google. So this meant ISPs couldn't pull any shenanigans like prioritizing their service over a competitor's. A perfect example of this is in 2012, when Comcast prioritized their Xfinity video app on Xbox and TiVo by making it so that using their app would not count against the consumer's monthly data cap. 3. Enhanced transparency, so ISPs have to disclose their network management practices, performance, terms of service, etc., etc. Only
This time shall be different!
And this time, it actually was, because the FCC reclassified ISPs as Title II, so the net neutrality order stood up in court. You may remember in 2014 and 15 all the BS that corporate shills were spouting, saying things like, "I'm not against net neutrality, I'm just against labeling ISPs as Title II," either through ignorance or deception.
I do have a question which was answered by the creator of the video, which was answered, but I'll explain at the end of the video, just in advance, Sharpwing. Alright.
Out the tiny little fact that the FCC was forced to reclassify ISPs as Title II by the ISP's constant lawsuits. The FCC originally had no desire to do that.
No, Sitch. Can't you see? Now that they're Title II, the government has full control over the internet. They can do whatever they want. They can start regulating prices. It's all over, man.
Not quite. You see, if you actually went and read the net neutrality order... Oh my god, it's 400 pages! Okay, at least read the executive summary, it's only 50 pages. You'll find this little important piece of information on page 12. Promoting investment with a modern Title II. Today, our forbearance approach results in over 700 codified rules being inapplicable, a light touch approach for the use of Title II. This includes no unbundling.
Remember when Ajit Pai was talking about light touch regulation? The Title II was light touch just so that they could enforce net neutrality. They knew what they were doing. We don't know what the fuck they did, because we didn't do our research.
Of last-minute facilities, no tariffing, no rate regulation, and no cost accounting rules, which results in a carefully tailored application of only those Title II provisions found to directly further the public interest in an open internet and more better and open broadband. Nor will our actions result in the imposition of any new federal taxes or fees. This is Title II tailored for the 21st century, unlike the application of Title II to incumbent wireline companies in the 20th century. A swath of utility-style provisions, including tariffing, will not be applied. In fact, Title II has never been applied in such a focused way. So as you can see,
the 2 women that supported net neutrality, I guarantee they were around for that vote. They were probably there helping draft up that document. They know the truth. Those other 3 fucks lied to your face. They knew what their Title II regulations were. And Ajit Pai lied to all of you. He pushed and touted these Title II regulations as the standard Title II regulations, which is wrong. These were watered down Title II regulations to just effectively do the one thing that they wanted over ISPs. Regulate them and keep them from cheating the consumer and destroying the free and open market of the internet. That's all it was. Trump supporter, Hillary supporter, you've been bamboozled. There's no way you can talk yourself around that. You can lie. You can outright just erase points in history and say, oh, that didn't happen. Oh, that didn't happen. But guess what? That's not an argument. You're just as bad as the SJWs pro internet freedom people, because you don't even understand what you've just done is oppose internet freedom. You don't understand that the FTC does not have the authority to regulate internet service providers, and now neither will the FCC. Give me one way, other than antitrust laws, that they can regulate internet service providers. You understand. ISPs are not classified under antitrust laws. So what's the FTC going to have to do? That's dumb.
See, fears of the big government overreach are unfounded. But even more important than that, we can see the truth. Net neutrality did not pop up out of thin air in an environment that was just doing A-OK on its own. The 2015 net neutrality order is the end result of years of legal battles spanning back to 2007. Actually, even earlier than that, but this video is long enough as it is. In fact, if you want to blame anyone, blame Comcast for originally throttling P2P services, which is what started this entire chain of events.
Wait a minute, Sitch. Just because one company did one thing 7 years ago doesn't mean we need more regulations now.
How silly of me. I completely forgot to mention all the times ISPs and telecommunication companies did shady things that violate net neutrality. Let's do that now. In 2005, the telecom Madison River blocked the internet phone service Vonage. The FCC put a stop to this. From 2007 to 2009, AT&T forced Apple to prevent Skype and other similar products from working on their phones when not on Wi-Fi. And in 2009, they completely prevented the Google Voice app from even being on the App Store. In 2010, Windstream Communications routed its customer search results through their own search engine without telling them. So even if you thought you were Googling something, you weren't. In 2011, Metro PCS tried to block all streaming video over its 4G network except from YouTube. And then they also sued the FCC. From 2011 to 2013, AT&T, Sprint, and Verizon all prevented Google Wallet from working. Why? Because they had their own program in the works that did the same thing. And you know what it was called? ISIS. How's that for karma? In 2012, Verizon was blocking people from using Google's free tethering app because it competed with their own paid tethering fee. Also, AT&T announced it would disable FaceTime from working on iPhones unless customers paid extra. In 2008, Cox and RCN also started throttling P2P speeds. From 2011 to 2015, AT&T lied to its consumers by offering unlimited data plans that actually weren't unlimited, because once you reached a certain amount of data, your speeds were significantly throttled. Oh, and the FCC fined AT&T $100 million because of this. I wonder, now that Pi's in charge, do you think AT&T will ever actually pay that $100 million fine? Oh yeah, and T-Mobile did the exact same thing in 2015. From 2012 to 2014, Verizon and AT&T put super cookies on mobile browsers, which tracked everything users did and were impossible to turn off. And of course, they didn't tell anyone. In 2016, the FCC began investigating how AT&T was engaged in zero rating, which is the type of thing I mentioned earlier that Comcast did in 2013 by making their apps not count towards data caps, therefore unfairly promoting their products. But of course, the investigation stopped as soon as Pai became the FCC chair. And we can't forget about the hilarious part in 2013, where during an oral argument, when Verizon was suing the FCC, Verizon's attorney said this.
Nope, it's pursuant to the no blocking rule. They say it would be tantamount to blocking if you charged edge providers to reach the end users. It is a corollary of the no blocking rule in the order.
And furthermore, if you're allowed to charge, which I'm assuming you're allowed to charge because of the anti-common carrier plan, if somebody refused to pay, then just like in the dispute between CBS and Warner, Time Warner,
right,
you could refuse to carry.
If we were not under these rules, we can't, right?
No.
But in a free market, we could. As I was saying to Judge Silberman, what the agency has done here is shut down and prevent the development of a two-sided market with respect to internet services. There is evidence in the record that edge providers are contracting with broadband providers where actually they demand payment. ESPN has a website that is so popular that ESPN demands and receives payments from broadband providers in order to allow those subscribers to access the ESPN content. So the market's there, certainly in that regard, and I'm authorized to state by my client today that but for these rules, we would be exploring those commercial arrangements. But for these rules, we would be exploring those commercial arrangements.
So yes, that's Verizon.
Convinced yet?
Admitting in court that they would absolutely love to make specific deals with individual edge providers to maybe give them a leg up over the competition, but just couldn't because of the regulations that were in place in 2011. And now comes the part of the video where we must talk about a true American hero. Alex Nguyen, a recent college graduate that now works in law enforcement, wrote a 116-page formal complaint to the FCC detailing all the times Verizon has violated net neutrality principles. In 2004, Verizon disabled certain Bluetooth functions from working, so consumers would have to buy specific Verizon products to fill the gap. In 2005, Verizon prevents its customers from downloading free ringtones off the internet and instead forces them to pay for ringtones from Verizon. In 2007, Verizon disables Google Maps and other non-Verizon connected GPS programs from working on their phones. In 2009, Verizon compelled handset providers to disable FM radio chips from working in their phones. And in 2014, they did the same thing, disabling all FM tuner applications. To this day, Verizon is still blocking all FM radio capabilities in their devices, while no other company does this. And remember how I told you in 2012 that they were blocking free tethering apps? Well, on top of that, they actually lied about it, saying that it was Google that was disabling those apps. However, when Google was asked, they said, yeah, they disabled them because Verizon asked them to. In 2013, Verizon prevents the Asus Google Nexus 7 tablet from working on their network. They only allowed it to work weeks after Verizon had launched their own similar product. AT&T and Verizon devised payment plans where they
We're still going, ladies and gentlemen.
essentially double-charged customers for the cost of their phone. In 2014, Verizon prevented SIM cards for iPhones from working with their network if the phone was bought through a third-party vendor and not through Verizon. Verizon initially prevented Pay with PayPal from working while preloading their phones with the previously mentioned ISIS. In 2013, Verizon got Samsung to disable the free program that can block calls from certain contacts. The reason for this was because Verizon was offering their own version of this program, but it cost money. In 2015, Verizon blocked customers from ordering new SIM cards for the Motorola Nexus 6 phone. On Verizon's website, they incorrectly stated that customers with existing iPhones would have to buy new iPhones when switching to Verizon. They only changed this statement when the author of the complaint, Alex Nguyen, told them he was complaining about it to the FCC. However, even when they did change it, it is still dishonest about what products are not compatible with their network. In 2016, Verizon prevents customers from using the Samsung White Pages caller ID.
We're still going.
Because it was in competition with their own caller ID. Verizon zero rates its video platform, Go90. And if you're wondering why so much of this is related to cell phones specifically, it's because unlike fixed broadband providers who give you your home internet, mobile providers were not subject to the same no blocking and no throttling rules until 2015. So if you want to compare a time of net neutrality,
mobile providers weren't subject to that shit until 2015. So 2015 actually did more to protect consumers. That was probably when they got worst company of the year, probably.
Versus no net neutrality, don't look at your home internet. Look at your previous phone contracts and how phone plans used to be. And of course, we can't forget how Comcast hid its FCC mandated service package that had lower rates from its customers.
Wait a minute, Sitch. FCC mandated rates? I thought you said they couldn't do that.
You see, my dear viewer, the pie lie is even more a complete, absolute lie. Because everything we've talked about so far has only been about regulations that apply to all ISPs. But every single time there's one of these giant mergers, like between SBC and AT&T, or Verizon and MCI, or Comcast and NBC, in order for these mergers to be allowed, they have to agree to an entire host of regulations. In the Comcast-NBC merger, the government regulated that Comcast had to offer a very specific low-cost plan to customers for a few years, the thing they tried to hide from people. And furthermore, in 2007, when the government auctioned off who could use the 700 megahertz frequencies, Verizon won the auction, and they had to agree to a whole host of regulations, which blocking the free Google tethering apps violated. So you can see that this whole idea about there being no regulations before 2015 is a complete and utter lie. And look, I don't blame the individual random people on the internet. Well, I mean, you did help promote the lie, but I'm going to assume you didn't know it was a lie. You were tricked. Tricked by the BS corporate lies of the big telecom companies. But you know who did lie? Pi! Because he worked for Verizon from 2001 to 2003. And he's been working for the FCC since 2007. So he knows what he's saying is a big...
Yeah, because if AT&T had merged with Time Warner, that would mean one less competitor for AT&T. Because Spectrum Internet right now is separate. And that's owned by Time Warner. If Time Warner merges with AT&T, AT&T and Spectrum Internet become one. That compresses the market and actually means less competition. But guess what? That's what this lawsuit between AT&T and the FTC is currently about. These massive multi-million-dollar corporations want to do mergers. Mergers, while they're already trying to go around and break so many different regulations to screw over their consumers to make more money. And they want the FCC regulations out of the way so that it's easier to do that. And then they'll have enough money and power to lobby against the FTC and push their mergers through. I guarantee you that's their plan.
Fucking lie. But he doesn't care. Because he's a big ideological hack. A perfect example of this was in his recent speech, where he complained about how Twitter and Google are being too quick to censor people. Which, yeah.
No shit, Sherlock!
My last video was all about how YouTube was screwing up in this regard. But what does that have to do with net neutrality? Absolutely nothing. Net neutrality doesn't make it easier for Google or Twitter or Facebook to censor you. It just prevents ISPs from censoring anyone. And Pi isn't even saying he's going to start regulating social media platforms either. All he's saying is,
Hey guys, these people who are supporting net neutrality are big poopy heads. So if you support net neutrality, then you must also be a big poopy head.
Which is obviously a completely stupid point, because all Pi is doing, the lying hack that he is trying to unnecessarily divide the net neutrality argument among partisan lines. So if you liked this video, if you thought this information was important, then make sure you share it everywhere you can. Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, anywhere you go where you see someone regurgitating some Pi lies. So you can shove this video down their throat and yell,
No! No, man! Is it? Is it?
and have a nice day. Unless you're not subscribed to my channel, then don't have a nice day.
One nation under God, more like one nation under the dollar. Exactly. And you know what's amazing? This channel is extraordinarily anti-left. He still calls out Pi. Pi was appointed by President Trump. So that shows you don't have to be a Trump supporter and then diehard support everything his commission does, or assume that everything his commission does is going to be for you. Any Trump supporter that endorsed this crap was probably brought in by a bunch of lies. And I've had people fucking come to me and talk about how net neutrality doesn't regulate these social media providers, as if that fucking warrants getting rid of it. Because Pi isn't even saying he's going to do that. All he is doing is demonizing the proponents of the current net neutrality regulations through bad that they've done, and trying to use that as justification to get rid of regulations that actually protected all of you in the long run, protected your families from high rates of internet. And I'm going to let you know something. There are people in the cast that are going to wind up canceling their internet if they have to pay a single extra dime to ISPs. This just became personal to me. I'm going to lose contact with friends that I have because of what these people have tried to do. So I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a personal beef in this fight. And that I wasn't going to, above all else, attack this as brutally and viciously as possible. Now you know why this is called Sharpwings' 1000-Year Rant. So let's go ahead and get this fucking thing off. The tie is coming off. First off, how could such a commission fucking disregard public opinion so badly? Like, think about this. Alright, their whole justification to their demonization of the public opinion was that there were some bots that showed up. About 7 million. There were like, I think 28 million people? 25 million people that called in. You subtract 7 million. That is still more people that have ever contacted the FCC about an issue than anyone else. And they completely disregarded the public consensus, which shows they are not for the consumer. Pi rolled back checks and mandates that gave smaller rural areas, urban areas as well, benefits that would allow them to afford internet. He rolled that back. Now it's harder for them to afford internet. Yeah, he's totally pro-consumer. Let's see what else. How about that whole slew of fucking lawsuits and shit that happened in the past that Pi completely disregarded? Fucking saying that the internet was free and open and nothing was wrong at all. Before 2015. What a fucking liar. How he blatantly disregarded the Attorney General, even though the Attorney General wanted them to postpone the vote for an investigation into this bot crap. Probably because he was the one behind it. Oh, and that bomb threat, the FCC too? I'm starting to wonder if anybody on the internet did that. That maybe Pi did that to demonize internet users. How about the fact that a lot of brainless repubtards fucking attack proponents of net neutrality as freaking lazy gamers that want shit handed out to them for free? My God, these Republican arguments are filled with blatant, unadulterated autism. And the autism people are fucking smarter than this shit. That's not an argument. That's just your repugtard bullshit coming into play. And you know what? If there's libtards, there's repubtards. And we found them, ladies and gentlemen. Bunch of fucking idiots that probably didn't even know what Title II was. Or if they did, they fucking outright blatantly accepted the lie that 1996 Title II was the provision they put internet under. Not a special, edited, light-handed, and modern Title II that would specifically be designed to enforce the net neutrality principles. Pi lied out the ass, and a bunch of repugtards tout his lies. And if this fucks up the internet, they never fucking deserve to live that down. If this destroys what my friends and I fought to build, I will never let them live that down. I will tell them time and time again, hey, remember when your president fucking picked the FCC chairman and he fucked up the internet? Yeah, those were good times, you fucking retard. Civility is off. I'm not about to fucking be civil about this shit. I have seen people so many times. I've seen fucking people in the political discourse of the Radio Molly group affirm over and over and over and over again that Pi is going to defend net neutrality. With what? Ooh, light-handed regulation. Ooh, Fucking transparency clauses. Good. Now they have to tell you they're going to fuck you in the ass while they're no longer mandated under Title II to be fair and open. But as Title I, they can do whatever the fuck they want with the internet service. Who the hell do these people think they are fucking acting like they know what they're fucking talking about? They are outright justifying this ideal that we will have no recourse whatsoever because they don't want government getting involved at all in these affairs. And this is where republicanism goes to its stupidity lengths. When they are willing to let thousands of people suffer just to avoid the government stepping in. At all. Ever. Fucking idiots. Morons. Jackass fucktards. Most of the Trump constituency was against Pi on this. But you gotta keep supporting blindly. Assuming that everything Republicans do is flawless. Well, you don't know shit about the internet, do you? You don't know that data is actually unlimited. That with net neutrality, it didn't require that all sites run at the same speed. Sites and your internet connection are two separate things. Here's how. Websites are centralized. They use their own servers, their own connections to establish their sites, other than torrents, which are peer-to-peer. Net neutrality didn't affect website speeds at all. It affected our download and upload speeds. Tell me something. Now that I've explained to you what the concept of download and upload is, you do understand that customers could pay for faster internet. Here's the catch, though. Which, by the way, that's what the whole no rate regulation thing came in. People just paid for faster internet, but everybody got the same speed of internet starting off. And there was no paid prioritization. Essentially, other ISPs couldn't pull a Comcast where they outright blatantly throttled Netflix until they agreed to pay a fee. Brought Netflix to its knees in those few minutes. That is what you have justified. By taking off the Title II regulations, that is what you have justified. Because the Circuit Court of Appeals has already pointed out that the FCC cannot enforce net neutrality unless these ISPs are sanctioned under Title II. If they are not, they do not have the authority to enforce net neutrality. What makes you think the Federal Trade Commission does? Let's see what the powers of the Federal Trade Commission are. And I'm going to look up a video on it, too. The Federal Trade Commission is an independent agency of the United States government established in 1914 by the Federal Trade Commission Act. Its principal mission is the promotion of consumer protection and the elimination and prevention of anti-competitive business practices such as coercive monopoly. Guess what? Oligopoly is legal. They just won't be participating in monopolies. But oligopoly is perfectly legal. ISPs knew this, and they used their oligopoly power to bring consumers to their knees. Because guess what? To the FTC, doing anything about ISP throttling wasn't their jurisdiction. Ooh, let's see what the videos are about the FTC's power.
Federal
Trade Commission for cancer charity is a sham. It is known as the oligarchy. Powers and law covering. General powers of the Federal Trade Commission. Common law prohibited a variety of trade practices unfair either to competitors or to consumers. These included passing off one's products as though they were made by someone else, using a trade name confusingly similar to that of another, stealing trade secrets, and various forms of misrepresentation in the Federal Trade Commission Act of 1912. Congress, for the first time, empowered a federal agency to investigate and deter acts of unfair competition. Section 5 of the Act gave the Federal Trade Commission power to enforce a law that said unfair methods of competition in commerce are hereby declared unlawful. By unfair methods of competition, Congress originally intended acts that constituted violations of the Sherman and Clayton Antitrust Acts. But from the beginning, the commissioners of the FTC took a broad view of their mandate. Specifically, they were concerned about the problem of false and deceptive advertising and promotional schemes. Yeah, so ISPs just have to be honest that they are screwing you. And they'll word it with weasel words and spin, and it'll probably sound good to the people that were pro all this. And hell, just to spite us, these people will probably pay the internet packages and have the audacity to say to our faces, "Oh, we made the internet so much better." Punch that fucker in the face if he says that, honest to God. Of their mandate. Specifically, they were concerned about the problem of false and deceptive advertising and promotional schemes, but the original Section 5 was confining it. It seems to authorize FTC action only when the deceptive advertising injured a competitor of the company. In 1931, the Supreme Court ruled that this was indeed the case. An advertisement that deceived the public was not within the FTC's jurisdiction. Yeah. So an advertisement that deceived the public was not within the FTC's jurisdiction unless a competitor was injured by the misrepresentation also. Yeah. So right there in 1931, businesses could lie to you. But let's see how it changed over time. Congress responded in 1938 with the Wheeler-Lee amendments of the FTC Act to the words unfair methods of competition were added. These words, unfair or deceptive acts of practices in commerce. Now it became clear that the FTC had a broader role to play than as a second agency enforcing the antitrust laws. Henceforth, the FTC would be the guardian also of consumers. So Ajit Pai is going to take the bite away from the FCC and hand it over to the FCC. I have no idea what regulatory power the FCC will have over ISPs. It's just the Federal Trade Commission. In fact, I think the one commissioner that said that the FCC was going to be outright abandoning us is true. Because Pai purposefully removed the regulations that gave them the power to enforce net neutrality. And he knows this. And he was a Verizon lawyer. I say again, oh, but some asshole just flat out has the audacity to snidely fucking say, oh, that doesn't prove anything. All it proves is that he knows law. And it also proves he sucked Verizon's dick. I guess. Who was campaigning this shit out the ass? Verizon. So guess who probably got a hefty bribe from Verizon? Pai. Honestly, God, it's not even speculation at this point. It's just your opinion, says the man who worked for Verizon. He worked for those people. He outright defended their unethical business practices. He knows the truth. He is in their pockets. Mark my words. Would be the guardian also of consumers. Deceptive practices that the FTC has prosecuted are also amendable to suit at common law. A tire manufacturer who advertises that his special tire is new when it is actually a retread has committed a common law misrepresentation. The buyer could sue for rescission of the contract or for damages, but having a few buyers sue for misrepresentation does not stop the determined fraudster. Moreover, such lawsuits are expensive to bring, and the amount of damages awarded is usually small. Thus, law actions alone cannot adequately address deliberately fraudulent practices. Through Section 5, however, the FTC can seek far-reaching remedies against the sham and the phony. It is not limited to proving damages to individual consumers case by case. The FTC can issue cease and desist orders and has other sanctions to wield as well. So do its counterpart agencies at the state level. After this, he would go back to Verizon as if nothing happened. That asshole needs to pay. He needs to be disbarred from his lawyer practicing. What he did there was absolutely unlawful. As administration agency, the FTC has broader powers than those vested in the ordinary prosecutorial authority, such as the Department of Justice. It can initiate administrative proceedings in accordance with the Administrative Procedure Act to enforce the several statutes that it administers. In addition to issuing cease and desist orders and getting them enforced in court, the FTC can seek temporary and permanent injunctions, fines, and monetary damages and promulgate trade regulation rules. Although the FTC's authority to issue TRRs had long been assumed and was approved by the U.S. Court of Appeals in Washington in 1973, Congress formalized that in 1975, the FTC Improvement Act, part of the Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act, which gives the FTC explicit authority to prescribe rules defining unfair or deceptive acts of practice. The TRR is like a statute. It is a detailed statement of procedures and substantive do's and don'ts. Before promulgating a TRR, the Commission must publish its intention to do so in the Federal Register and must hold open hearings on its proposals. Draft versions of a TRR must be published to allow the public to comment. Once issued, the final version is published as part of the Code of Federal Regulations and becomes a permanent part of the law unless modified or repealed by the FTC itself or by Congress, or overturned by a court on grounds of arbitrariness, lack of procedural regularity, or the like. A violation of a TRR is treated exactly like a violation of a federal statute. Once the FTC proves that a defendant violated a TRR, no further proof is necessary that the defendant's act was unfair or deceptive. Examples. The TRRs include the Retail Food Store Advertising and Marketing Practices Rule, Games of Chance in the Food, Retailing, and Gasoline Industries Rule, Care Labeling of Textile Wearing Apparel Rule, Mail Order Merchandise Rule, Cooling Off Period for Door-to-Door Sales Rule, and issue of negative option plans by sellers in commerce. General principles of law governing deceptive acts and practices. Alright, this is the final part. With a staff of some 1,610 regional offices, the FTC is, at least from time to time, an active regulatory agency. The FTC's enforcement vigor waxes and wanes with the economic climate. Critics have often charged that what the FTC chooses to investigate defies common sense because so many of the cases seem to involve trivial or at least relatively unimportant offenses. Does the nation really need a federal agency to guard us against pronouncements by singer Pat Boone on the efficacy of acne medication, or to ensure the authenticity of certain crafts sold to tourists in Alaska as native? One answer is that through such cases, important principles of law are declared and ratified. To be sure, most readers of this book, unlikely to be gulled by false claims, may see a certain Alice in Wonderland quality to FTC enforcement. But the first principle of FTC action is that it gauges deceptive acts and practices as interpreted by the general public, not by the more sophisticated. As a U.S. Court of Appeals once said, the FTC Act was not made for the protection of experts, but for the public. That vast multitude, which includes the ignorant, the unthinking, the credulous, the deceptive statement, and the credulous. The deceptive statement or act need not actually deceive. Before 1983, it was sufficient that the statement had a capacity to deceive. According to a standard adopted in 1983, however, the FTC will take action against deceptive advertising if there is a representation, omission, or practice that is likely to mislead the consumer acting reasonably in the circumstances to the consumer's determinant. Critics of the new standard have charged that it will be harder to prove deception because an advertisement must be likely to mislead rather than merely have a capacity to deceive. The FTC might also be put to the burden of showing that consumers reasonably interpreted the ad and that they relied on the ad. Whether the standard will reduce the volume of FTC actions against deceptive advertising remains to be seen. The FTC also has the authority to proceed against unfair acts or practices. These need not be deceptive, but instead of such a character that they offend a common sense or propriety or justice or of an honest way to comporting oneself. See figure 24.1 Unfair and Deceptive Practices Laws for a diagram of the unfair and deceptive practices discussed in this chapter. Alright, let's see it. Failure to disclose pertinent facts. Deceptive endorsements. Passing off. Misrepresentation of product or service. Misleading price claims. Bait and switch. Free offers. So they just have to tell you what they're charging you. False comparisons and product disparagement. Misleading contests and sweepstakes. Negative options. Willful breach of contract. Unfair direct sales methods. Does any of this, refer to an internet service provider? Let's see what we got here. No, the FTC won't save you once net neutrality rules are killed. If you understand anything about the net neutrality fight, it should be this. Repealing these popular rules is just one small part of a long-standing ISP plan to reduce meaningful oversight of one of the least competitive industries in America. So far this year, we've already watched as the Trump administration gutted broadband privacy rules, defended price-gouging prison phone monopolies, made life easier on business broadband monopolies, and began weakening the standard definition of broadband. To help obfuscate a lack of competition in this sector, if they're only really getting started, the next big push lobbied for by Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon is to gut meaningful FCC oversight to giant ISPs. Then shovel any remaining authority over to the FTC. This week, the FCC and FTC released a joint statement declaring that this new coordination of online protection efforts in quotes right there, would be a massive boon to consumers while protecting a free and open internet. The Memorandum of Understanding will be a critical benefit for online consumers because it outlines the robust process by which the FCC and FTC will safeguard the public interest. Said FCC Chairman Ajit Pai, instead of saddling the internet with heavy-handed regulations, we will work together to take targeted action against bad actors. This approach protected a free and open internet for many years prior to the FCC's 2015 Title II order, and it will once again following the adoption of the Restoring Internet Freedom Order. Again, as if pointing out facts matters with this FCC, there are numerous falsehoods being pushed here. One being that the 2015 net neutrality rules were heavy-handed, since by international standards they're pretty modest. 2, being that the internet somehow magically flourished under Title I throughout history, which ignores the fact that ISPs were classified under Title II with no ill effect for years. Cable 2002 and DSL 2005 were only reclassified under Title I because ISPs promised this reduced oversight would result in incredible levels of competition that you may have noticed never actually materialized. Yeah, so don't listen to their promises. They're lying to you. They will lie straight to your face. They will lie straight to the commission. They will lie straight to the public to get what they want. They are evil. And that's not an exaggeration or fear-mongering. They are. They don't give a shit about you. Again, as if pointing out... But the biggest problem with the FCC is ignoring is that the FCC doesn't really have much solid authority over broadband providers. And what authority that exists is at risk of being obliterated by an ongoing AT&T court battle with the FTC. It was planned. That's what I've been pointing out. AT&T is in court right now with the FTC while this was going on. It was coordinated. It was planned. They wanted it this way. AT&T wants to cripple the FTC. The FTC is going to wind up being crippled while this Restoring Internet Freedom Act is put into place. And we're going to be stuck with it. And Pai's going to laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. Because he's not on our side. Would result in incredible levels of competition that you may have noticed. So, 1. The FTC agency lacks rulemaking capabilities, meaning it can only act after bad behavior has already occurred. and only if that behavior can be classified as unfair or deceptive, which will give companies like Comcast ample wiggle room to pretend bad behavior was necessary for the health of the network. And the FTC is already overextended and underfunded, so most meaningful ISP oversight will likely fall through the cracks. According to an interview earlier this year with former FCC boss Tom Wheeler, this, of course, was the ISP lobbyist plan from the beginning. That little lawsuit with FTC, it's not coincidence. It's all a part of a master plan. You watch. Once this lawsuit with the FTC ends, they are going to be crippled by the ISPs. And guess what's going to be in place after that court case goes through? The Internet Protect Act with a crippled FTC apparently being our holy regulators that will somehow manage to protect consumers when they are overextended and underfunded. I wonder, is Trump going to take some of his own personal money and pour it into the FTC like he did with these other programs that he sidetracked people with? I don't think he is. In the Trump administration, people are talking about stripping regulatory power from the FCC and essentially taking the agency apart, including moving jurisdiction over internet access to the Federal Trade Commission. Modernizing the FCC is the lingo being used. What's your thought about that? It's a fraud. The FTC doesn't have rule-making authority. They've got enforcement authority, and their enforcement authority is whether or not something is unfair or deceptive. And the FTC has to worry about everything from computer chips to bleach labeling. Of course, carriers want telecom issues to get lost in that morass. This was the strategy all along. Why do you think, oh yeah, you know, Verizon and these massive multi-million-dollar ISPs were so afraid of the regulation going into the hands of the FTC, right? Why did they lobby for it? And why is AT&T coincidentally the same time as Verizon trying to pull some deceptive shit? That's not fucking coincidence. I tell you now, it's not. That is way too convenient for them to be coincidence. It's a part of their plan. And I don't think that's just conjecture. I think it's common sense. So it doesn't surprise me that the Trump transition team, who were with the American Enterprise Institute and basically longtime supporters of this concept, comes in and says, oh, we ought to do away with this. It makes no sense to get rid of an expert agency and to throw these issues to an agency with no rule-making power that has to compete with everything else that's going on in the economy and can only deal with unfair or deceptive practices. Now, tell me something. Is fucking you over, throttling you, forcing you to pay rates for shitty internet? Tell me. If they're reclassified as actually having the right to do that with their internet, is that an unfair practice? Or is it fuck-uppedly allowed in our law? Is it autistically and extraordinarily fucked-uppedly, undereducatedly going to be allowed to slide? Fuck yes it is. Ironically, this doesn't even cover the biggest problem that an AT&T legal battle against the FTC could obliterate what little authority the FTC does have over broadband providers. That case revolving around AT&T's decision to throttle unlimited data consumers, then lie about it. That case revolving around AT&T's decision to throttle unlimited consumers, then lying about it, could result in any company with even a modest common carrier component being able to dodge FTC authority almost entirely should AT&T win. The FTC is already on record clearly stating that companies could simply acquire small common carrier-oriented businesses to dodge regulatory oversight. The FTC was even telling people, while all this shit was going on, that they're not going to have the power. So I think they're convinced they're not going to win this court case with AT&T. They're going to lose. The panel's ruling creates an enforcement gap that would leave no federal agency able to protect millions of consumers across the country from unfair or deceptive practices or obtain redress on their behalf. Many companies provide both common carrier and non-common carrier services, not just telephone companies like AT&T, but also cable companies like Comcast, technology companies like Google, and energy companies like ExxonMobil, which operate common carrier oil pipelines. Companies that are not common carriers today may gain that status by offering new services or through corporate acquisitions, for example, AOL and Yahoo, which are not common carriers, are or soon will be owned by Verizon. The panel's ruling calls into question the FTC's ability to protect consumers from unlawful practices by such companies in any of their lines of business. You should be furious, because I just tore it all apart. The FTC is not going to have the regulatory power to protect you. All the people that supported this Internet Freedom Act were duped. It was a guise. It used a disgustingly fake name. It was an outright manipulative lie. It was a smorgasbord of sin, ladies and gentlemen. A ruse. A game. A mudslinging. A campaign of misinformation so you wouldn't know you were going to be screwed by multi-million-dollar corporations that are the least competitive in the entire world. They knew they were doing that to you. Pi knew he was doing that to you. So don't get sad. Get mad. Maybe you should be angry. Literally, I don't know where we could go from here other than getting mad, calling up our people, and starting shit. Protesting in the streets. Getting pissed off. Maybe a few people outright defy the FCC and still pull up their own municipalities, calling the FCC a bunch of names and condescending them while a bunch of psychotic congressmen try and use people's police to stop millions of people. And hopefully, a bunch of country people show up with guns and are ready to throw down with their police. I don't care what lengths people have to go to protect this country, because they've already crossed thousands of lines, they've overstepped their authority, and it's time we rebel. So, if you're wanting to fight, if you were looking for a fight, congratulations. You're probably going to have one. And isn't it fucking cute that the FCC's little mandate, it specifically wanted to prohibit state municipalities that would enforce any rule similar. They don't have that authority. I don't think they do. And I think somebody should contest that. I think Pi's trying to act like Internet Hitler. Going on fucking thinking he can tell these states what to do. You know what I do? I encourage you outright to fucking disregard that rule and defy them. I encourage you to break the arm of anybody that would try and touch your municipality. Show them you're not afraid to get rough. Because if they're not going to play nicely, I'm not interested in playing nicely. The gloves come off. Civility ends once we've gone every avenue to point out, no, you don't have a right to do this. We've opposed it. We're done with you promoting it. Yeah, I think we should outright defy them. I think we should forcibly get any representative that supported this shit impeached. Let's start a fucking revolution. Honestly. This is worthy of it. Like, this is some levels of special kinds of fucked up that would fuck people over for decades. We would have no recourse for decades. I say we be remembered for one good thing, and that's breaking the FCC's arm. I've said this before. If this goes down and it passes, the entire society will fall apart because they're going to throw a big, huge rebellion, not just on a cheat lie and the FCC, but the entire presidency, especially with Trump. I would hope so. Because if we're just going to let this happen, if we're going to sit down and take it up the ass, then we deserve to be raped. In fact, we straight out asked for it if we don't do anything about it. Oh yes, please, Mr. Pi! More! More! You want to be Pi's bitch? Go on ahead. I'm not going to be. First sign I see of a fight going on out there, I'm jumping into the mosh pit. Just saying. Of any of their lines of business. Mentioning this massive looming loophole appears to simply have slipped Ajit Pai and the FCC's mind as they sell the public on this turd of a policy proposal. But it gets worse. According to telecom policy expert Harold Feld, even if the FTC manages to win that case, its authority over broadband ISPs remains so shaky, most of the net neutrality violations we've long been familiar with, from ISPs letting interconnection points congest to drive up costs for Netflix, to AT&T blocking FaceTime, to force users onto more expensive plans, wouldn't be policeable under this new regime. In short, Feld makes it clear again that those stating that FTC authority and existing antitrust will protect us in the wake of net neutrality repeal don't have a solid understanding of how regulatory oversight of the broken telecom market actually works. If you think AT&T or any other broadband provider has the right to decide what content and services subscribers should access, then this order eliminates what you have considered nasty FCC overreach of the last 15 years. More really, but at least since the 2002 cable modem order. Don't bother with hand-waving about how you think it won't happen, or how consumer pushback will keep ISPs from doing bad things, etc., etc. On the question of does the FTC have the power to stop a broadband provider from saying, I'm not going to let you use a particular service or access particular content, the answer is a flat-out, straight-up no, because of normal everyday businesses absent a specific enforceable regulation. Offering you some limited service is not unfair under 15 USC 45A, period, full stop. It's undisputable. Proponents of this order no longer have an argument, in my opinion. That straight out disproved it. Because guess what? We have no protection from that. And any fucking retard that's just gonna say, but my government oversight, deserves to be punched in their fucking snarky ass face for the shit they've pulled. Now I'm pissed. These are all notable telling omissions by those claiming that fleet FTC authority will be enough to police massive predatory duopolies like AT&T and Comcast. It's simply not the case. And again, the goal here isn't just more reasonable or less heavy-handed oversight of these giant companies. The goal is the elimination of nearly all meaningful oversight entirely. And while there's still numerous free market folks who believe gutting FCC oversight of natural monopolies like Comcast magically fixes a very broken market, that's simply not supportable by history or factual data. Anybody that believes gutting oversight of some of the least liked and least competitive companies in America magically forges utopia is either being willfully obtuse for personal financial gain, or they're taking ideological lessons from elsewhere and misapplying them to a broken market they simply don't understand. If allowed to pass, this push to gut oversight of these apathetic duopolies is going to have a profoundly negative impact on the health of the internet, the ability to innovate, and content and service competition for a generation. Pay attention and don't be a part of the problem. Well, guess what? It's fraud. The FTC doesn't have rulemaking authority. Constitutionally, the FCC does not have it either. The Constitution does not give Congress the power to create rulemaking agencies, only rule-enforcing agencies. Since you don't seem to care about one fraud, you lack standing to bitch about another. Citation needed, please. Provide link to where in the Constitution it expressly prevents the creation of rulemaking agencies. Because I just read through the original document and I didn't see anything in there about it. Your premise is a logical fallacy. The Constitution is a document that defines how the government is to be set up. And powers each branch will have. This means if a power is not granted, it is denied. Because I just read through the original document and I didn't see anything in there about it. Exactly. It does not grant Congress the power to unburden itself from the responsibility and power of lawmaking and foist them upon another branch, agency, office, or appointment. If the FCC, FTC, DOJ, ABC, or any other alphabet soup agencies want a new law, they are constitutionally required to be passed by Congress, no exception. Section 8 generally defines the powers that Congress shall have. And giving away their power is not something that defined as possible in the Constitution. Any amendment must first be written and ratified, and I do not know of any such amendments that alter Congress's lawmaking powers in this way. That's funny. The last paragraph section states, to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested in the Constitution in the government of the United States, or any department or office thereof. Emphasis, mine. I don't know, man. Seems pretty cut and dry that Congress can create any agency, department, office it wants if it deems them to be necessary and proper. And since the FCC and others like it were created to be an expert agency to make rules and regulations when Congress may not have a full understanding of the various and assorted fields that make the world go round, that seems pretty necessary and proper to me. Section 8. Understanding is critical here. I do not say they could not create agencies or departments. I did say they could not give those agencies or departments the power to create law. There is at least one metric fuckton of difference between those two statements. Yet with the program, it really helps if you can stop trying to misrepresent what I am stating. I don't see anything in the Constitution that says Congress can't make a law establishing an agency of experts that can then act and make law on behalf of Congress in their particular area of expertise. The agency is still under Congress's purview, and if they create a bad law, Congress can invalidate it. And in cases where it directly conflicts with either the Constitution or other laws passed directly by Congress, it is immediately invalidated in favor of the Constitution or direct congressional law. It also does not state the agencies created can only be rule enforcing and not rule making. However, if you know of a passage explicitly stating otherwise, please share it for the enrichment of all. Congress doesn't need to make an agency to oversee the president because it already exists. It's called the judicial branch. We can agree to disagree on whether powers are expressly granted by the Constitution or not. But given the thought and care the founders put into writing it, I can't believe they would have been so rigid in writing it that it didn't allow for some flexibility in new situations. That's why so much of the Constitution is written in broad terms like to make all laws, doesn't say what kind of laws. Congress doesn't need to make an agency to oversee presidency because it already exists. It's called judicial branch. Yeah, you definitely do not understand. They are not there to oversee anything other than judicial cases. It says so right there in the Constitution, Article 3, Section 2, Part 1. It does not say shall oversee the president or executive branch. We can agree to disagree on whether blah blah blah. He's just citing what the person said. It was their best attempt to stave off ignorant people like you. What you define as broad is actually pretty narrow, but you lack the understanding of why and how that is. And because of that lack of understanding, you are easily tricked into allowing a serf willingly shackled to the mandates of the state rather than being free to express your individual liberty. You are a slave that does not even understand enough to know that you are a slave. And it is only by your ignorance that you remain one. These pricks are so condescending, and they don't even work to dispute these regulations. My anger. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and post this. Let's see, how long have I been going for? 3 hours? I've said my piece. I think full-heartedly what has been done was a massive decision against the American people. I think the idiots that endorse this fully don't understand what they have wrought, and they are condescending people that actually fucking give a shit about people. And man, I think the autism is strong with this. I think in the days to come, if this is not stopped, we will see how one of the most corrupt, anti-competitive industries of the world is somehow not going to blow for all of us. Now, let's get this taken care of. Copy. Paste. That's the link to the Radio Molly Discord group. If you're 18 and up, you can go to that if you're new. You'll be vetted through the lobby by our moderation and staff. Fucking idiots. Rice damned idiot fools. You know the drill, ladies and gentlemen. Goodbye.